Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Schmoedown Rundown. Introducing first, Frankie Stats Janisch. And their co-host, the man of controversy, Mr. Brian the Duke Davids. And finally, your host, Aaron Turner. Let's get ready to Schmoedown.
What's going on, Movie Trivia Schmoedown fans? It is episode number 40 of the Schmoedown Rundown. My name is Aaron. I'm your host as always. Joining me today, he is the stat man. He is Frank Janisch. What's happening, man?
What's going on, everyone? I'm just glad to be a panelist on this wonderful podcast.
Don't be an ass. Also here, co-host. He's seen Dunkirk twice in 16 hours. He's dedicated. He's Brian Davids. What's up, man?
Aaron, Frank, there's no hiding from it. I have a job to do.
Fantastic. Also here, you may know him as the Beast. You may know him as, excuse me, the esteemed film critic for Crave Online. Perhaps the co-host of the B-Movies podcast. Perhaps the host of Cancel Too Soon as well. He is the Beast. Hashtag him growl growl. He is the Beast, Mr. William Bibbiani. Welcome back, sir.
Growl growl, everybody. Growl growl to you, and growl growl to you, and growl growl to you, and growl growl to you at home, whoever you are listening.
Excellent.
Hey, so is the origin of growl growl still a mystery? I just want to get that.
I have not. I invited everybody to say, hey, where did I get growl growl from? No one has gotten it yet. Some people thought when I did April Dawn's show, Show and Tell, when I talked about the movie The Boy and the Beast, that was me giving the origin of growl growl. That was the origin of the Beast. That was not the origin of the expression growl growl. That has not yet been uncovered. It's pretty obscure, though. I do not expect people to know it off the top of their head.
Perhaps it's time to dangle a carrot to motivate people to dig a little deeper, because we failed so far.
All right, I'll give you a carrot. It is from an animated series.
Okay. No, I just mean, well, I'll take that clue, but I just mean dangle a potential prize so people are motivated.
Oh, I'm gonna give you like a video shout out on Twitter.
There you go.
Yeah,
that's all the motivation you need, folks, right there.
Yeah,
this is like finding the golden egg in Ready Player One. Like it's a lot of work. But I got that.
I won't know these references until December, Aaron.
Okay. We might know them tomorrow if they drop a trailer at the Warner Brothers panel. Just saying, it might happen. But all right, let's get going here. Let's talk about some news that happened this week, and it actually concerns the Beast. I want to start with Robert Meyer Burnett, formerly of the Horse Persons, now of the Lion's Den, a former stablemate of the Beast, and John Schnepp, his former partner of Heroes, has decided that Robert is too much of a villain, and now Schnepp will align himself with Hector Navarro, and they will form a new team. Not sure if it's going to be Team Heroes, not sure what's going to happen. So I'm going to kick it to the Beast first. What do you think of your former stablemate, Robert Meyer Burnett, also leaving the Horse Persons?
Well, I mean, we didn't talk about it at all. That surprised me just as much as anybody. I think he also made a wise choice. I think both of us were a bad fit for the Horse Persons. We are too big. We are too powerful. We are too dominant. And I wish him the best of luck. But, man, is he gone full evil. Like, he's gone crazy evil. Like, I'm actually, like, worried for him, and I'm worried for me and everyone else in the league. If we ever get in the same room as him, he's going to shout us down, and like the walls are going to collapse. Like he's going to be the big bad wolf up in this league, except that, I guess that would be Clark. He's completely gone off the reservation, and I cannot wait to see what he does next.
It's one thing to leave the Four Horsemen, but how did you feel him defecting to the Lion's Den, though?
Okay, that one hurt a little bit. I'm not going to lie. We all have our own path to take. I generally feel that if your path takes you into a lion's den, maybe it was the wrong path. But here's the thing: you got to admit, given the direction he is going, given the evolution of Robert Meyer Burnett as a player in this league, it makes sense. Although I gotta wonder, is there not a cap into how many people can be in your league, in your faction? Like, yeah, in your stable. How many people can join the Lions then before we got to just say, is there anyone left? I mean, it seems like they're just sort of swooping everyone up.
Aaron, what's the most you've seen in actual wrestling?
Well, actually, the NWO back in the good old days of WCW had about half of the roster had joined the NWO at one point. So,
all right, fair enough.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of. I guess as long as you don't have a number in your name, like 4 Horsemen or something like that, I guess you're okay. I guess there's really it's infinite.
Well, I mean, they only have 4 people that actually play now with Robert Meyer Burnett, so
it's a fair point.
Dick, I don't even want to call that playing.
Wow, sure, that's cool stuff.
Well, let me just say it makes sense why Robert Meyer Burnett would join Top Den. They are currently with emphasis the best stable, but he did imply. Now, this is not confirmed, but he did bring up the point that the android knows comic book movies rather well. So I expect Robert Meyer Burnett to join up with the android very soon to replace the role of John Schnepp.
Could very well happen. I don't know if that stable needs another team, because I think what you saw what happened with the 4 Horsemen is people had pretty much the same agendas and they got in the way of each other, and then they broke up, and perhaps having the people in the same stable, den, whatever you want to call it, having the same agenda is going to conflict and create some turmoil within the group, and then you get these interstable rivalries that you really don't need, and it creates chaos. And then look what happened to the 4 Horsemen. That's kind of how I've seen it.
To that point, Android has known his role so far. He does not have the championship aspirations yet.
Right.
He's been a loyal stablemate. He spoke up big time at Collision, but so far he has been really the perfect guy to have in your stable because he knows when to speak and when to stay quiet.
This is something I'm actually dealing with myself as I'm trying to put together the Growling Commandos. And one thing I've learned firsthand from being part of the 4 Horsemen is it's not simply a matter of getting everyone who is good at this. You do want to make sure you're not stepping on each other's toes. You do want to make sure you're not all contributing the same thing to the team. You want to spread it out. You want to get different personalities, and you want to get different strengths. And yeah, you don't want to – listen, I'm perfectly happy if Whitney ever joins the singles. We'll compete – and we'll try to destroy each other, and it'll be fun. But you don't want everyone with the exact same goals. It's dangerous, and it's a recipe potentially for destruction. And, yeah, I think you're right. I think Andraco and Burnett, if they decide to hook up, I have no inside information about that. The lines then don't tell me nothing. But that would make sense to me. They're kind of polar opposites in a lot of ways in terms of their presentation and in terms of their skill sets. It would be a pretty tough team.
You make some good points there. Now, the Lions Den has, of course, Tom Dagnino as sort of their figurehead. The Growling Commandos at the moment have Ricky as kind of Ricky Hayberg is sort of your mouthpiece there. What's it like working with him?
Ricky, the thing I love about Ricky is that he totally has your back. Ricky has made me feel like a natural beast for so long. And I'm so glad I can finally talk about it because it's been nice to have someone actually in my corner. The dissolution of the Horsemen and that special event we had the other week, that was a very emotionally charged moment for everybody for a variety of reasons. And I'm not sure I was necessarily very articulate about my grievances. When I started in the league, I had a really, really good first match. And then Roca came on and invited me into the 4 Horsemen. And I thought that was sort of a reward. And what I realized over time was that Roca, perhaps by design, perhaps by accident, he discovered it later, he kind of just took my victory. I made a victory, and then he picked me up for his stable, and now my victory is his victory. All of my victories are his victories. All of my losses, however, were the sort of thing where, you gotta, you gotta train hard or whatever. I'm like, no, I thought this was a team effort. Whenever he's competing with Nost and they lose, which is a lot, they're always very clear. Like, no, you didn't fail us. We failed together. This was a team effort. But whenever I failed, I had work to do. So, it's tricky. It's tricky. It's passionate. But Ricky makes me feel great. Ricky is awesome. What I love about Ricky is that Ricky knows he isn't really that good at the trivia. So there's no competition there. He's not trying to say, I know better than you. He's letting me do my thing. I'm letting him do his thing. And it's great to have a booster. It's like having an agent. It's great.
And that's why I've come around to the idea, because initially I didn't like the idea that you and Ricky were teaming up because you're both great on the mic. But because he's not a factor in the actual league, he's always going to have your best interests in mind, just like Dagnino has his stable's best interests in mind, believe it or not, because he knows he's not a strong player. So I love that you and Ricky Schroeder are teamed up now because he's going to have your back. He wants you to be successful. And like Christian told me, it doesn't hurt to have 3 or 4 great people on the mic in one stable. It's more entertaining.
Yeah, I don't mind. There's not a lot of competition for the mic. Competition in the game, that could be a problem. Competition for the same belt, that could be a problem. Competition for the mic, you want to get like a couple of people who love to smack talk, let them at it. That's great. I think it works really wonderfully, and I'm very excited for the future of the Growling Commandos. I think we're off to a great start.
Well, to be fair, we hadn't seen the full potential of stables or managers until recently. For the longest time, it was just a matter of a manager speaking on behalf of their stable. It wasn't until Collision, at that point, we finally saw what a stable can do, where they question, they challenge, they signal. That is where Ricky is going to be very beneficial to you.
I agree. I cannot wait to see what the future brings. We only just had our first team match. I'm going to be back at it in singles. We're going to explore this. We're going to grow, and we're going to see how we can hopefully change the league and destroy everyone in our path.
Can I ask an obvious question real quick?
Sure.
What took so long to get Whitney in the league? Were the Dead Horsemen simply in the way?
I was part of a stable, and to bring in another player to be a teammate, he would have had to either be part of the Horsemen, but now there's the 5 Horsemen, and who ever heard of such a thing? Or it would have potentially created a rift, either back when I didn't necessarily want a rift or before I was ready to create that rift. So I had been wanting to for a long time. It's something I brought up to Harloff multiple times, but the time wasn't right yet. And now, you know what? Just the straw on the camel's back, and now we have to build a whole new camel with half me and half Whitney, and it's a great camel. It's great.
Well, I'm glad you're finally in the right stable with a real intellectual like Whitney and a great mouthpiece like Ricky. Is always going to have your best interests in mind. So
what's interesting right now about the league is that for the longest time, it seemed like the focus, whether it was intended or not, was on singles. It just seemed that way. It seemed like the singles matches got more pump. But right now, it's like the teams are, if not equally as important, which it should be, teams seem to have quite a shot in the arm right now, especially with Burnett and Schnepp and Navarro. Now we have Critically Acclaimed and DC Movie News and IGN and Rotten Tomatoes or whatever they're going to be called now, and the Nerds Watch. And there's just been a giant shot in the arm to all these teams. And we found out that one of the teams that has been towards the top echelon had a title shot, didn't quite go their way. The Wolves of Steel, which is I almost said Mark Ellis, that would have been terrible. Mark Riley and Clark Wolf. We weren't sure what was going to happen with them because Riley is essentially retired, taking a break. Not sure quite when we'll see him again, but we were assured after today's singles match that Riley and Clark were going to make one more run out of it at least, whether that means just the tournament, whether that means their next loss, title match, we're not sure. But Frank, I want to start with you on this. Wolves of Steel sticking together. What do you think?
I love it. I love that Riley is, you can tell he's doing this for Clark. He wanted to get her the belt the first time around they had a shot at it because at the time, he was the current singles champ, and he wanted both belts. He's never tasted – he is very loyal and supportive of Clark Wolf, and I think that's the big factor here for him coming back. He's kind of – I like to think of it semi-retired. He's last hurrah for Clark in the Ultimate Schmoedown tournament, and I, for one, I'm glad that he's participating. I'm glad that Wolves of Steel is participating in this tournament because they are one of the top teams in the league. Forget about how they started because right now they have been on a roll. Yes, they lost to the Patriots, but so has everyone else. And
so far,
yes, that's right. Correct. And Riley has performed very well as of late. So, and I think it'll continue into this tournament. And I'm excited to see who they end up facing and just the path that they could go on. It'd be really fun to watch.
Frank Janisch was making some bold predictions earlier this week on Twitter. We might talk about that a little bit later. We might not. Brian, what do you think about the Wolves of Steel deciding to stick together?
I'm not surprised. I expected them to go at least one more tournament. I do like the idea, though, that with Riley semi-retired and not caring as much as he used to, perhaps he's going to get some of that Christian Harloff, nothing to lose, good luck on his side when it comes to team tourneys. Just when he thought he was out of the Schmoedown, the team tournament pulls him back in. So I wouldn't be surprised if they went on a run. Do I think they're going to win when you've got teams like Critically Acclaimed and Rotten Tomatoes or Rotten Turks, whatever you want to call them, Patriots? No, they're not going to beat those teams, but they might make a run given the nothing to lose factor. But ultimately, this is going to set up Clark and her next team, her next stable. I think she's going to perhaps do something with Miss Movies and Stacy someday.
Don't turn your back on the Wolf Pack, that's for sure. Bibbs, what do you think of the Wolves of Steel deciding to stay together, and does that interest you at all?
Well, it interests me because it's another team I get to beat, so I'm really excited about that. As far as Mark Riley coming back for teams, he said he was retiring, and then what was it, like a couple of weeks later, he's back for
Brett
teams? Like even Steven Soderbergh retired for longer than this. I mean, it's a little ridiculous to me, but you know what? They have a great rapport, those two, and I look forward to just pummeling them so much that maybe we can create a rift there. I really just want to annihilate them and everyone else. I can't think of anyone I don't want to annihilate. But yeah, no, I think I'm happy to see them together. They're very fun together. And what you were saying about the teams sort of taking off, it's one of the reasons why I wanted to get in teams, is I've been kind of seeing this coming. The singles matches are fun, but the team matches, they're getting better because, A, the teams are getting better. We're starting to see higher and higher scoring matches in teams. So that makes it more interesting and dynamic, but also just having a whole ensemble cast to interact with and bicker and argue and compete with while you're on the stage, while you're behind the stage, it creates a much more exciting dynamic, and they have a good dynamic together, and I really hope I can rip them apart.
Is there any team that you respect? I mean, you keep saying you wanted to destroy everybody. I'm just gonna say it.
I want to defeat them. It's not necessarily that I disrespect all of them. There are many.
What I'm trying to say is, anybody on your level, your team's level, your perceived level.
There are.
Better way to say it.
No, that's fair enough. And I think here's the deal: there are teams that don't tend to score very high, who I'm not super worried about if we ever compete against them. There are teams that do very, very well in most circumstances. That listen, the whole JTE thing. I lost to JTE. I underestimated JTE. I'm not planning to do that again. I'm going to take all of these matches seriously, and I'm going to make sure. I took that match seriously, but I thought I'd be just walking through it, and I ended up not. And it was really, really, it was a tough one. So we're taking everybody seriously, and it wouldn't be a worthy victory if we didn't have a worthy opponent. And there's a lot of worthy opponents out there. I mean, the Nerds Watch, just going up against Rachel Cushing alone, I would have some nerves about it because she's really, really smart. The Patriots, they know what they're doing. I don't like them, and I want them to go down hard, but clearly they are able competitors, and there's no sense in denying that. I don't like what they represent. I don't like the way they conduct themselves behind the scenes, partly because I want to do some of that stuff myself, but I digress. Yeah, so I take them seriously. I mean, if we ever played against Harloff and Ellis, if they ever came back together, that would be a worthy team. They're tough. There are tough competitors out there, and that's what makes it fun, and that's what's going to make my victory so much sweeter.
Now, is there anybody that you kind of have like a friendly thing with? Like, I know you're friends with Alonso Duralde, who's competed a couple times. Do you look at him and you're like, I would like to just beat him for fun? Or anything like that going on?
Alonso Duralde he knows a lot of his stuff. He's really, really intelligent, and he's been around doing this longer than I have. So to defeat Alonso Duralde would mean a lot, but I'm not 100% sure I could. That would be a tough match. Recently, I got into a bit of a thing with the Moultons. And so that would be great. On the other hand, if Whitney and I end up playing a match against Leonard and Jesse Moulton, if we win, awesome. Oh my God. And if we lose, well, what did you expect? It's Leonard Moulton. So there's a little freedom there, and we can hopefully just have a good time. If we can just hold our own with Leonard Moulton, even that's a badge of honor. But we would do our best and try to take him down.
I think that match would be a lot of fun, but we were looking at the schedule this week because Christian had updated it, and it shows yourself in a singles match going up against the Mance Man, Scott Mance. Now, what are your thoughts on him? Have you been studying any game tape on Scott Mance, or what are your thoughts?
Well, I do study game tape on every competitor. I compete against who has played before. And Mance is actually a tricky opponent because, as Mance has proved, and honestly, as I have proved, even a good competitor can have a bad day. Bad spin of the wheel, couple of questions that just aren't in your wheelhouse or about movies you haven't seen, and you look bad. Mance's last match was not great. But if you look at Mance throughout the whole league, he's actually a very respectable opponent, and if the wheel goes his way, he could be very, very formidable. So my goal with Mance is to take him out of his comfort zone. My goal is to try to make him... Mance dominates any room he's in with a sheer force of playful energy, and we all love him for that. And I'm hoping I can maybe find some way to take him down a peg and make him nervous and actually get him on the wrong wavelength, on a less confident wavelength, and then maybe he'll slip up. So ideally, it'll be a quick done-in-one match. My goal is to take on every opponent that has ever defeated Roca and defeat them to prove that I could have done this all on my own and I didn't need anybody else. But I'm not going to assume it'll be an easy match just because the Hal Rudnick thing didn't go so great.
Oh, so this has been a plan for a while, it seems.
There is a game plan. There is a game plan because this is a game and I have plans.
Take a page out of the Android's playbook, as he basically called La La Land derivative, as did others. But there was another show, another competition where Android went at Mance, calling La La Land derivative of this movie and that movie. So right there, that could be your key to getting under his skin, getting him distracted and sidetracked to where you can then exploit it.
You can't see me right now, anyone who's listening to this podcast, but I'm winking.
Oh, jeez, I can't wait.
We
to
can
hear
confirm
this.
that wasn't
see this. But Bibbiani, that's a busy week for you. Basically, you're in tournament mode from those two matches because it's you win, you're in, and from there on, it's the tournament. You win, you go on. What kind of mindset does that to be in two do or die situations in 1 week?
What do you mean 2 do or die situations in 1 week?
Well, because there's Schmoedown qualifiers for the tournament, the team qualifying match against DC Movie News, and then Mance is a qualifying match to get into the singles tournament.
Oh, so you haven't heard? You haven't heard the news?
Tell us.
Oh,
because
wait,
that DC Movie News. What are they again? DC something.
DC Movie News.
Yeah,
DC.
sure.
Yeah, they that match is not happening.
Oh.
I have been informed today that match is now off the table. I don't know why.
Breaking news. Breaking news.
But what I can say is that Critically Acclaimed, and I'm pretty sure them, but I can't speak. I can't confirm that. We should simply be in the tournament. It's my understanding that we're in the tournament now. That match is not happening for some reason I don't know. I've been informed that we're good to go.
Okay, well, we got breaking news here on the Schmoedown Rundown.
Very interesting because
a couple questions here.
Yes.
I want to ask you about records real quick before we get into all the team recap and whatnot. Does it frustrate you when you can't answer all of your questions, especially when you're on a record-setting pace? If you could change some things, how would you address potential records when you're on a record pace, or would you just keep things as is?
Look, it's frustrating when you're doing real well. And honestly, I wasn't 100% sure what the team record was when we started that match. So that wasn't even on my mind at the time that if we had gotten our 3 questions right, we would have broken the record. Now that I know, it's kind of frustrating. I'm like, we were so close. Yeah, I don't think it's a good idea. I know some people have floated the idea of
just asking the question.
Just ask the question. And honestly, when you're there, honestly, Whitney and I, like after that match, when we were done, we were just like, can we find out what we would have had?
Wow.
Like even just the categories, we were just curious because you pick these random numbers and now you'll never know. And it's a little frustrating. It's like a cliffhanger to a show that doesn't get picked up again. And so
organic plug for your podcast.
Thank you very much. Cancel too soon. It's available now. But yeah, no, it's frustrating and it's weird. But I think what it boils down to is we won. That's it. There's no point in continuing. Like, if I don't know how baseball works, but it's my understanding that at the end of a baseball game, it's, if the team is not good or something, that it can just stop or something, right?
That's usually weather. There's mercy rules in certain, I guess, leagues you could say.
Yeah, I'm just saying there's no point in continuing.
Well,
it's just kind of rubbing it in the other team's face, and we've already done that. We beat them.
Yeah.
So we don't need any more. It's fine. And we'll break that record somewhere down the line when we're competing against a team that is able to get it all the way through round 3.
Well, you would keep the score as is. The score wouldn't change, but like in the home run derby, if you get 10 outs, if you keep hitting home runs on your 9th out, you keep going until you miss. So it's just kind of unofficial. Let's see what would happen hypothetically.
But if it's unofficial, then I don't think it should count as breaking the record. I mean,
breaking the record. Hang on, asterisk.
Breaking the record when you've already won the game isn't playing the game. The game, part of the game is that intensity, is that will we make it through? Oh God, we only have 5 or 10 seconds or whatever, however long it is.
It's a hollow
to answer
record.
This question. It would mean nothing, honestly, to me. It'd be neat, I guess, but ultimately, again, I don't want to just win. I want to prove something. I want to. I really want to. I want to show off. That's what I want to do, and I don't necessarily want that. Yeah, I don't want an asterisk. I just want to get the record.
I just want you to have your cake. I just want you to have your cake and eat it too. But yeah, you've now convinced me it's a horrible idea. Another question: What are the odds of a Harry Ellis, John McClane cosplay?
I am losing a lot of hair. You know what? That's not a bad idea. We've already talked about our next big intro, which is going to get pushed back because we don't have that game anymore.
You don't need shoes, just a wife beater and no shoes. That'll work.
I appreciate that. There's a lot of stray debris on that set. I could hurt myself. No. I mean, it's not a bad idea. Listen, it's not a bad idea at all. So we'll put that on the list. If we're part of this team tournament and if we do as well as I think we're going to do, we're going to have to do a lot of intros pretty soon. So having one in the back pocket that isn't super expensive is not a bad idea.
Aaron, you asked us what intrigued us most about the schedule, so I'm going to answer your question real quick before I hand it back to you. What intrigued me most were the 2 Inner Geekdom matches that were scheduled in early August. I predicted for a while that early August would lead to regular Inner Geekdom matches. So Cushing, Kalinowski, Gendreau, and Burnett are most intriguing to me at this time. That being said, my regular Inner Geekdom match prediction is somewhat hindered by the fact that there are 800 tournament matches taking place very soon, but I'm still going to credit myself for the early August prediction, as we seldom have 2 Inner Geekdom matches that close together. Lastly, did Jason Inman sign a non-compete agreement somewhere else? Because he has all but disappeared from Collider lately.
Well, Team Trek is in the team tournament. But
are they?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
They canceled his Inner Geekdom match with Gendreau, which he challenged.
He could be. doing
He
some
hasn't been on
press.
Dog.
Could be some pressing for Jupiter Jet. We don't know where he's at.
Look, all of us, everyone in the league, for the most part, is in the league because they do a lot of stuff. Because they're voices, they're critics, they're hosts, and scheduling can be really tricky. So I can't say whether Inman has anything else going on, but he probably does. He's a busy guy. He does a lot. So I wouldn't necessarily read anything into that. Or maybe it's a suspicious plot. I don't know.
William, you've got
one or the other.
You've got new fans thanks to the Schmoedown. Let's talk about that real quick because I listen to the B Movies podcast now. I've engaged with you on certain points that you've made that potentially call me out as a response to certain things I've said here and there. At least that's what I tell myself, inflated sense of self-worth. But how is the engagement increase? I mean, obviously there's greater engagement taking place because of your presence in the Schmoedown. I think that's important for potential competitors to hear.
Oh, it's actually great, and it's actually been one of the best parts of it. I get to hang out with a lot of people who work in Burbank, so I don't see them very often, but I also get to interact with a lot of fans who, when I joined the league, hadn't heard of me. I've been doing this for a long time, but my social media, I didn't have as many followers as I do even now, and now people know me. People listen to my podcast a little more. And they're engaging with me on Twitter, which I love. I love being able to interact with people and share ideas about movies. And that has been wonderful. And the Schmoedown fans are great. Occasionally you get a comment that I can handle a negative comment. I can even handle a mean comment because, look, let's be honest here. I'm a heel in this league. I am
sort of.
Whatever I am is someone that is potentially there to not be necessarily well-liked. I am a threat. I am a threat to you, and I am a threat to your knowledge. Other people in the league, not necessarily you listening to this podcast. You're probably great. But it's been interesting, though, since the betrayal, seeing people just respond to random things I tweet with #traitor. And I actually wonder sometimes, oh God, I hope I'm not on some watch list now, because that's what people are saying about me. But the part of me there was a moment where I was like, oh, really? And then it was like, I literally yelled, I betray you. I can't deny that I am technically, in the context of the Horsemen, a traitor.
Yeah.
Can't deny it.
Well,
the engagement goes both ways, I guess.
If you have such a response like that, you did it right. That's all I can take away from it is sure. if you're playing the role of someone that's not trying to be a nice guy and people hashtag you traitor and say how dare you turn in your badge and your horse.
Great line, by the way.
You've done it right.
Great.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. That's something that's weird for me because I'm not actually, I don't really have a wrestling background. I watched a little bit of it in the 80s. And my wife actually explains most of it to me. Like we watched Glow and she was just like, and this is why this works. And here's how character dynamics operate. And then it's been really, really interesting actually to explore this element of it. But yeah, it's odd. It's unusual and it's fun. And when people say, "Oh, I hated Critically Acclaimed. They're so conceited," that's we yelled at the screen. We're smarter than you. We know that wasn't an accident. That's the thing we did.
That was the best part for me. Scrolling through the YouTube comments after your match, there was one comment I got a particular chuckle out of. I think it was just talking about Whitney specifically. It's like, I don't like this Whitney guy. He came in, he's wearing a suit, he's all like well groomed. He's just being a jerk, and I don't like it. I hope they get eliminated real quick. And I was like, oh my God, this they did it. Like it works perfectly. That's the exact response they want you to get, and you're playing right into it. So
it only took you 30 minutes for this guy to like unleash on you.
Well done.
Thank you. It's weird though. It's weird for me to get used to that concept because it's not necessarily who I am as a critic, and who I am as a critic and who I am in the league. There's a lot of overlap, but it's not the same thing. And it's weird because it is my name in both versions. So it's a little unusual, but I'm enjoying the hell of it. And again, Schmoedown fans are mostly the best fans. Unfortunately, I have to prioritize my own podcast fans and then Schmoedown fans. So listen to the podcast and then you'll be number one.
No matter what, there's always going to be a certain number of people who will not understand or get the joke or realize what the true tone is. They won't get kayfabe. So you're always going to have a mixed bag of reactions. But let me ask you, Whitney, how has he taken to all of this in his limited time in the league so far?
He is enjoying it. He's enjoying it quite a lot. I think he's keeping a running tally of how many people say he looks like Ellis from Die Hard. Like, he's really amused by it. He's watching the reaction videos, and he's enjoying when he like comes out and people don't know who he is, and they just like, I don't know who that is. Like, he's actually like, he's enjoying this aspect of it so far. He's already got like, I forget the number he told me. It's like a couple hundred new Twitter followers in a day. His Twitter account is hilarious, by the way, because like 1/3 of it is linking to his rather extensive work. And then the other 2/3 are the weirdest, most dada humor nonsense you've ever heard. And I'm so glad more people are actually going to follow him at Whitney Seibold, and appreciate just what an unusual mind he has. He has a mind like a steel trap. He knows cinema as well or better than practically anyone I've ever met in my life. So it's really, really gratifying to see that he is getting more attention and that he's able to enjoy that.
So I was curious because he doesn't put a photo up on Twitter, much like myself. So I was wondering if he was uncomfortable with all the sudden attention that is now on his life, thanks to the Schmoedown. So,
Whitney, here's the thing. Okay, I don't want to like speak out of turn about him or anything like that, but I don't think he'd mind because we've talked about it on the podcast a lot. He's a bit of a Luddite in a lot of ways. Like, he only just got a smartphone like a couple of years ago. So, you know, the whole social media concept is something that he doesn't approach the same way other people do because he doesn't like immerse himself in it. He's always a little bit on the outside of this stuff. And I think that makes the stuff that he posts and the way that he communicates in social media that much more interesting. So I wouldn't necessarily say he's being shy. I think he just looks at the medium of the internet in a way that a lot of people don't.
What's brilliant, though, he puts up a white picture on his profile, and it catches my eye more because he doesn't have a picture up there than if he had a picture up there. So it's kind of brilliant when you think about it.
Well, Beast, let's talk about your debut match with your partner, Whitney, as you took on Only Stupid Answers in what started off as a match that we weren't sure how it was going to go. After round one, it was looking pretty grim for Only Stupid Answers, but they hung in there a bit. Brian, why don't you take us through round one? Tell us what happened.
Yeah, real quick, though, we got to give credit to Only Stupid Answers for coming out to the Mortal Kombat theme. It's one of my favorite themes in a movie, period.
Has that never been used before at the Schmoedown? Because it seems so obvious. It seems so obvious in retrospect.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I wish I thought of that, honestly.
Beast, are you prepared for the fact that at any match at this point, they might reintroduce music clips in the scores and soundtracks category? Are you prepared for this?
I am actually probably going to be better at that. Like, if you just tell me this, if I listen to a bit of the score and you want me to know what movie it's from, that I'm pretty good at. It's just, here's the thing. For every composer who has a stamp, who has a style, who has a personality, you can recognize a John Williams theme. You can recognize a Hans Zimmer theme. You can recognize a James Horner theme or a Danny Elfman theme. There's a lot of very, very talented composers who are intentionally trying to fade into the background and not call attention to themselves. That's their job in that movie. So it's easy to sort of forget who directed what if the score wasn't super memorable. But I do remember watching it, and if I can hear a bit of a theme, and I go, Thor. That was Thor. I remember Thor now. Stupid Thor. Like, no, I like Thor. But yeah, no, like I think that would actually be great. I would actually really look forward to that, and I think I do rather well. It actually has bothered me that I haven't had a chance to do scores and soundtracks again since the free-for-all, which I got all my chords and soundtrack questions right there, because I want to disprove that. I had a bad run of questions. It's not really that bad a category for me.
Well, speaking of critically acclaimed, the Saw intro was very effective. I appreciated that a great deal. So Moving into round one, the question one, the evolution actor from X-Files, David Duchovny, 2-1 critically acclaimed. Question two, E-Banks, Elizabeth Banks, Power Rangers, 4-3 critically acclaimed. Question three, one of my favorite films of 2016, Midnight Special, 6-4 critically acclaimed. So you guys are coming out firing. The only actor to appear in Jurassic World from Jurassic Park, at least for now, B.D. Wong, 8-5 critically acclaimed. 0 in Grand Budapest Hotel, one of these supporting characters in Homecoming, 9-5 critically acclaimed. Question six, Daniel Radcliffe in Swiss Army Man, 11-7 critically acclaimed. Question seven, one of Aaron Turner's favorite films, A Legend of Bagger Vance, 13-7 critically acclaimed. And perhaps Aaron Turner's favorite franchise, 6 Paranormal Activity films to date, that's 15-9 critically acclaimed. Whitney, the cyborg Cybele, that's not his official nickname.
No, it is not.
He had a perfect round one, which is very reminiscent of your perfect round one to start singles play. So the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, I guess you could say. He's a chip off the old block. I could go on for days, but Whitney got his bonus question correct. Another Ferris Bueller question. Who knew? He was absent 9 times. So competitors out there, to those of you who listen, rewatch Ferris Bueller's Day Off, because Chris Skaliski, once he gets into a groove with a certain movie, he likes to go back to it. So after round one, my reaction was game over. This is the true threat to the champions right now, Team Patriots, critically acclaimed, made a statement in just round one alone. William, let me get your response. When you're seeing your teammate make his debut, tell me about your internal reaction to seeing him perform this way. Just round one.
Yeah, just round one. It's absolutely great. And then there was that one round where, damn it, I blanked on Tony Revolori's character's name in Grand Budapest Hotel. I interviewed Tony Revolori when he made that movie. So I'm super embarrassed by that. And I'm like, and then Whitney got it right. And my first reaction was, man, dang it, no. And then I actually stopped myself. And if you watch the match, you can see me stop myself. I'm like, wait a minute, no, this is great. He's on my team. Yay. My inclination is to be competitive, but it's a team effort now. And if I slip up and he gets it right, great. If he slips up and I get it right, great. Hopefully we'll both slip up.
Titan, let me get your reaction to this incredible round one for Whitney.
I'm just going to clarify a couple of your points. Paranormal Activity, I like the first two. Just want to throw that out there. More of an Evil Dead franchise from top to bottom is the best. Legend of Bagger Vance, though, I do enjoy that film. Want to clear up the B.D. Wong thing right now. Benedict was an answer that DJ gave, which was not his first name. The B.D. actually stands for Bradley Darrell. Right. So, of course, B.D. Wong, most notably as Dr. George Wong on Law & Order Special Victims Unit. That's not important. I don't know why I said that.
He's actually better on Mr. Robot, but thanks for playing.
Okay. Anyway,
so that was kind of harsh. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I just want you to watch Mr.
The
Robot.
important thing is that we all love B.D. Wong.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. He's great. He's a great actor. Yeah.
Father of the Bride. My God.
Mulan. Okay. Well. Yeah, after round one, when I saw that Whitney gets 9, Bibbs gets 7, 16-9 after round one, I was in the camp of, well, how much longer does this have to be? Because it was not looking good for only stupid answers at all.
In my notes, I wrote game over.
Right, Frank. I got to ask from a stats perspective because I love hearing how good we are. Is that the highest? is that the highest first round for a teams match, or has anyone ever gotten more than 16?
That is the highest point total in teams with this 8 question. So it's there's a possible 16 points without the bonus question, and you guys got 16 because Whitney got the bonus because he was perfect 8 of 8, actually 9 of 9, and so you guys really kicked some major ass there, and 16 points has never. Only Late to the Party had 14 points in their first round when they played. So you topped them by 2 points. So that's pretty damn impressive because at the time 14 points was the best performance point wise in the first round.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a bold prediction. Critically Acclaimed will be the first team to have perfect first rounds from both players.
So 18 points, you think?
Whitney will go perfect for 8. Beast will go perfect for 8. They'll both get their bonus questions. Boom.
Do you make that same prediction if Bibbiani is not here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They've both set records before. I mean, why? It's a safe bet. It's a safe bet.
Frank Janisch, why do you not believe him? Real quick.
No, it's entirely possible. I mean, we've seen Bibbiani go on a run before in the first round, and look, he only missed one.
Several.
Yes, several. You're right, and he only missed one this first round. So who's to say that he can't replicate that performance, if not go 1 better, 2 better to get that 9 of 9? Yeah, if there's any team that's going to do it, it's Critically Acclaimed, and I'm not just saying that because Bibbiani's here. It's because of what I've seen, and I think you're not going to find too many people out there. And if they are disagreeing, they're going to come around to the fact, much like I've come around to the fact that Patriots are a pretty good team. Critically Acclaimed, dude. If anyone's going to do it, it's them.
Well, before we get to round 2, Frank, do you want to talk about the tweet that you put out regarding Critically Acclaimed and Team Patriots, or do I need to pull that out?
Are you talking about the second round?
Yeah, sure. I'm talking about how you said that let's not get ahead of ourselves. Patriots would still beat Critically Acclaimed, I believe.
Wow.
No. That's not what I said. That is not what I said, Aaron.
Beast, put him down.
I'm gonna go pull up the tweet, and I'm gonna tell you.
Hold on, we don't have time. Just answer.
Put him down.
I said no. Look, I said in the second round. Look, I said in the second round, I felt like Critically Acclaimed got exposed.
Woo.
And that if they were to face the Patriots, that's where they could take advantage. And then I said, I didn't say the Patriots is a sure lock over Critically Acclaimed. That's not what I said. I just didn't like the fact that Critically Acclaimed had to go to multiple choice so many times, because that leaves room to gain ground by not having to go multiple choice. And Patriots is a strong team, and they can run the table without going to multiple choice. So I just look, I'm trying to temper my expectations, but also I realize how good Critically Acclaimed can be. So I'm trying to play both ways, I guess is what you could say.
Here's the thing. If you had asked the Beast who the director of Hell or High Water was an hour later or the next day, he would have told you David Mackenzie. Am I right, William?
Yeah, actually, like what happened in round 2 was actually kind of interesting, and we played it a lot more conservatively than I think I ever would have played it in singles. Part of it was because I knew I could rely on my teammate and we can confer. Part of it was we had a suicide lead, and we figured, you know what? We don't actually need to go 2 points on all of these. It would help, but we're pretty comfortable right now. We might as well be sure. So when it came to the Hell or High Water question, we knew Mackenzie, and I was just like, and I wanted to say Brett Mackenzie, who is, of course, from Flight of the Conchords, and I knew that was wrong. And the time was running out, so I'm like, screw it. Okay, multiple choice. And turned out that was fine. When it came down to Patriots Day, we were pretty sure it was Michelle Monaghan, but we wanted to be sure. We'd only seen the movie once, so we waited. We didn't know 10 Cloverfield Lane. We didn't know. We did not remember that scene. We didn't think it was an important scene to remember. apparently Skaliski did. Apparently it's his favorite scene, I guess. I don't know.
Let's recap round 2 and then
go ahead.
Come back accordingly. But it's 16-9. You have a 7-point lead. You spin new releases. You take it, which is fair. You guys cover new movies all the time. And we talked about David Mackenzie, 17-9. Question 2, Michelle Monaghan, 18-9. Sailing in Moana, multiple choice is called Wayfinding. You got that as well. 19-9. Dan Stevens played The Beast. Go figure, you would get that question. 21-9, Critically Acclaimed. The beverage in 10 Cloverfield Lane. Was it vodka? That was the one miss, as you said. 21-9, Critically Acclaimed. And question 6, the private phone number of the general in Arrival, 22-9. Critically Acclaimed. End of a 5-point turn. William, your overall thoughts on your turn beyond Mackenzie and Monaghan?
You know, again, I think we played it safe, and I think we were wise to play it safe. because if we had gone out on a limb on one or two of those, we might have gotten it slightly wrong. When we were talking about the arrival question, when we had our hand over the mic, what we said was it's the phone number, right? But we weren't sure if that was enough, and we didn't want to end up being challenged on it. So it was like, is it a cell phone number? Is it his personal number? What do we say? So I figured, okay, we'll just wait and see what they say in the multiple choice. Because, again, we were way ahead, and it was possible that they could close that gap a bit. But we weren't super worried about it because, again, we were set. Now, in a match, maybe with an opponent who was tougher, if it was a closer match, we probably would have pushed it a little further. On the other hand, maybe we would have brought it down to 1 point just so that they couldn't steal too much. So it's a tricky thing. I always said that when I started working in teams, I'm going to play a little differently because I want to make sure we both have an opportunity to play our strengths. Look, it worked out. And if they had indeed played just a teensy little bit better, we still would have been able to beat the points record. So I do not think that's a bad round two. It's not the best round two anyone's ever played, but I think it was a pretty good round two.
Aaron, any takeaways from the new release's turn for Critically Acclaimed?
Well, besides apologizing for misquoting Frank Janisch, I'm sorry, Frank.
Thank you.
Did mean to throw you under the bus there. Stop scowling at me now. I have a question, actually, Mr. Bibbiani, about new releases in general. Now, you guys, like yourself and Whitney, as critics, sometimes you get to see movies well ahead of time, whether it be a festival or what have you, months and months before they are actually released to us, the general public. Does that in any way key into something where it's like, okay, well, Arrival came out this day, but I saw it like 6 months ago, so it's not fresh in my mind. So is that something possible that could play out, or am I just way off base here?
Well, new releases is interesting on a couple of levels. I've watched a lot of people take new releases on the wheel, and I generally would have done pretty well in all of those rounds. But the problem with new releases is twofold. One, actually threefold, I guess. One, you might have missed a film. Oh, I haven't seen blank yet. I'll say a film I have seen, and I just won't. I haven't seen Underworld Blood Wars yet. Okay, well, I'll get to it eventually. And then it comes up in the Schmoedown, and crap, I should have seen it. Okay, so that's possible. Another thing is that older movies, what's important to them has sort of filtered down through the consciousness, and it's easier to remember key scenes. This was an important scene that has lingered from Footloose or Dirty Dancing or Home Alone or whatever. So those things linger, and for a new release, I got to tell you, I'm not sure that 10 years from now, when we talk about 10 Cloverfield Lane, we're going to be talking about the freezing beverage scene. I don't think that's the one that's going to be super important later, and it's necessarily going to be a really good trivia question. It's in the recent memory, so yeah, fine, but I wasn't thinking when I watched 10 Cloverfield Lane, I'd better remember this beverage scene. And the last thing is real simple. You know, when you watch movies as a critic, and you watch a lot, and you also do what I do, which is I watch an entire season of television every week, sometimes longer than others. But we don't have a lot of time to rewatch stuff, especially new stuff. So, like, I've seen The Arrival, but I only saw it once. So it's not as fresh in my head as something I've seen literally 100 times, like Evil Dead 2 or RoboCop. I know those movies real well. Or Back to the Future or whatever, you know, the classics. And so, like, yeah, you give me a question about Citizen Kane, I will know it. You give me a question about Moonlight, I love that movie, but I haven't watched it that many times, and I might not remember certain details terribly accurately. So new releases is actually a tougher question, a tougher category than I think you might think it is, just because it could go in any of those directions.
Well, feel free to invite John Roca over for a Back to the Future screening. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, that one. That hurt everyone. But he wasn't alone. A lot of people didn't get those Back to the Future questions. That was pretty brutal.
Well, it's a good thing you don't have to answer questions in relation to 1996's The Arrival. Fortunately, it's just 2016's Arrival, the best film of the year. So
okay, hang on. I will not have any The Arrival bashing. I like that movie, and I've seen that movie several times.
Oh, yeah,
that's a good flick. David Twohy. That's a great movie. All right, that's Ron Silver turning into an alien and trying to mess with the atmosphere. Awesome. Lindsay Cruz like walking in through like a field of flowers in Antarctica. That's cool. That's a good movie. I like that movie.
William, let me ask you real quick. I asked this question to Mark Wright, but I think it's a valid question for real players, real talented players. Do you know as early as round 1 if this match is going to go your way? Do you know if it's your night or not from the get-go?
The answer to that is no. No, you don't. If you had asked me when I was playing Harloff at the end of round 1, how are you going to do? I would have, hell, at the end of round 2, I would have felt real, real good. All right, but as long as it's not like, again, a runaway success. We were feeling pretty good in this one, but again, round 3 has screwed me over before. So
it's not necessarily the score at the end of the round. It's more of the feeling. Do you feel at some point that you're in the zone and that you're unbeatable?
No, and maybe I did once, but no, and I don't. And it's because it doesn't matter how I feel if they ask a question about a movie I haven't seen. It doesn't matter how good I feel if I don't, because I never saw In Country. Oh, I never thought that would backfire on me so hard. But then I lost to Harloff because of that. So I was feeling really, really good in that match. And then In Country? What the hell? No one talks about In Country. I don't remember In Country. So it doesn't really matter. And I've learned to try to shut that off and just focus on the question in front of me. And not focus on that groove.
You hear athletes talking, oh, I knew I wasn't going to miss for the rest of the game. I knew there was no way we were going to lose. So I'm just trying to see if there's any correlations. But at Frankie J,
I'm sorry. I just think it's different for an athlete, for example, because they're doing a specific thing. You're only throwing a ball at that hoop. The hoop doesn't all of a sudden change shape and all of a sudden it's In Country. Like it's not quite the same thing. So I can buy it from an athlete, but I don't think with movie trivia, when a lot of the questions are randomized, it's not like you pick the category, you're going to have the whole game or anything like that. That's a little trickier. Maybe if I was playing Inner Geekdom, because you can kind of prepare for Inner Geekdom. Okay, I got to rewatch the Harry Potter movies. I got to watch the Star Trek movies. You know, like you know what's on the docket for Inner Geekdom, but for the regular matches, not so much.
Frankie J29, any additional thoughts on Critically Acclaimed's round 2 turn?
I thought it was a pretty, look, I'll say it was an average second round, but they went to multiple choice 5 out of the 6 times. And I understand your reasoning, but at the time, I had assumed you just weren't unsure because that's all I can go on. But now listening to you and how you guys had a lead and you rationalized certain questions, and we'll just play it safe here because we do have a big lead. I did think of that, but you don't really know for sure. So I look forward to a second round in which you guys play where you don't go to multiple choice and play strong. And I'm sure you guys will eventually crush the second round just as good as anyone has ever had.
Well, that's very kind of you. And I think the one thing I regret about this match is that I wanted to respin, and it was Whitney's first match, and he was cool with new releases, and we just went with it. And I wish we'd respun because there's a lot of categories on that wheel that I know we would have done really, really great at. If we had only stupid answers as questions, that would have been a really, really great round for us because we just know those movies. But they had a better second round than us. We still kicked their butts, and we still a TKO. I'm fine with that. Listen, I'm going to say this right now. I skipped to the end a little bit. Only Stupid Answers did actually pretty well. Like an 18-point match in a team match is pretty solid. Like they have nothing to be ashamed of. They came out great, and in a lot of other matches they would have won.
Well, fortunately, new releases though it's only 6 to 12 months of films. It covers, I believe, a 6 to 12 month range. So at least it's not an entire decade. But let's get to Only Stupid Answers. They spun directors. They spun again for fantasy sci-fi. Question 1: Millie in Jumper, played by Rachel Bilson, 22-11, critically acclaimed. A friend of mine, David, on another podcast, cut together every time Millie says David in that film. It's rather hilarious. David Chen. Question 2: Skeletor in Masters of the Universe. Multiple choice. Frank Langella, 22-12, critically acclaimed. Question 3: Umbrella Corp in Resident Evil, 22-14, critically acclaimed. Very impressive pull there by Sam. Question 4: Aaron Eckhart in The Core, 22-16, critically acclaimed. Apparently, Sam Bashor is a huge Aaron Eckhart fan. So, who knew? Question 5: The Waterworld Gang. They were called Smokers. 23-16, critically acclaimed. They got the 1-point steal. And I think Whitney, this was interesting to me. I think Whitney wrote out the multiple choice options instead of asking the announcers to read them again. I don't think I've ever seen that done before. Beast, do I have that correct?
You know what? I'm trying to remember. It would not surprise me. He is very fastidious with his notes and with his preparations. And oftentimes when we're doing a podcast, he'll just write things down. Or he might have also been doodling. He does that a lot too.
It's a good strategy, though.
It's a decent strategy. I'm not going to lie. Yeah.
Well, question 6, Nick Holt, multiple choice, Jack the Giant Slayer, 23-17, critically acclaimed, end of an 8-point turn for Only Stupid Answers. So impressive round. Just when we thought they were dead in the water, they showed some fight. Yeah, there was still a sizable lead, but I think this team has proven that they are entertaining. They're likable guys. DJ, Don't Call Me Orlando, Wooldridge, Sam Bashor, of course. So even in a losing effort, you can show something to the league that warrants them coming back. Unfortunately, they were just up against a buzzsaw. Frank, let me go to you. Any additional thoughts on Only Stupid Answers and their 8-point turn?
It was pretty. I found it pretty impressive for guys that aren't critics, that are just. I mean, they're really just fans like you and I. And yes, they go see a lot of movies and stuff. Because I had known them from their SourceFed days. I knew them from that, so I wasn't quite sure how good they would be at movie trivia. But I mean, Sam pulling out that Aaron Eckhart core question really impressed me. I was like, wow, they had some impressive answers there, and yeah, so they surprised me in a couple ways there in the second round.
If the Schmoedown ever adds a Maud Garrett category, we are all screwed if Only Stupid Answers happens to draw that category on the wheel. William,
yes,
were you at all phased? I expected that joke to play better, but William, were you at all phased by their 8-point turn? Did you lose any confidence, or were you just as comfortable after this round?
No,
after this turn?
We were still pretty confident. We were impressed, honestly. They did well in that round. It was looking like, and I had my fingers crossed, that we just have a proper KO. But their second spin went in their favor. They got asked a lot of questions that they knew, and they should know, because everyone should know those movies. Who doesn't know the core? Come on. No, it was fun. It made the third round a little bit more exciting. Obviously, there's the longer the game goes, the more opportunities you have to not win, which, it ramps up the tension when you're on the set. But no, I wasn't super worried, but I was appreciating the moment. And again, I'll say it again. Only Stupid Answers. I'm glad we kicked their butts, but they did a very respectable game.
Did you know the Umbrella Corp question?
Yes.
Just making sure.
I've played the games. I've seen all of the movies. We just had Paul W.S. Anderson at Crave Online for a Facebook Live Q&A. I know the Umbrella Corp.
I've invested a lot in your team so far, so I'm just making sure we've got our I's dotted and our T's crossed. AT Titanium on Twitter. Any additional thoughts on round 2?
Brian, I'm also insulted by the Umbrella question, because that's, as a person that considers Resident Evil 4 for the GameCube arguably the greatest video game ever made, and a giant fan of the franchise, Umbrella is an easy pull. But anyway, yeah, Only Stupid Answers sticking around here. I still wasn't worried, but I'm glad that they made it more of a competitive match, if that makes sense. Because I think even from the get-go, Only Stupid Answers was like, we're not going to win, but we're going to make it fun. So even they knew what was going to happen eventually. So to see him kind of hang in there, just kind of the inevitable was going to happen, but it's still a lot of fun.
Well, round 3, 23-17 lead for Critically Acclaimed. Only Stupid Answers, their 2-pointer. It's the tagline from Click. So it's 23-19 Critically Acclaimed at this point. And I think we can all give credit to Netflix, because we all scroll through Netflix many times per day in some cases. And this is a cover that was on Netflix for years, and it still might be. And I think we all picked up on this tagline thanks to Netflix. So,
okay, I'm going to say this right now.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm going to say this right now. When the tagline of your movie is the plot of the movie, and it's a plot that no other movie has ever had,
that's a layup.
That's not a. I mean, it's a 2-pointer. I'm not mad at it or anything like that. But for me, it's basically, hey, you ever hear of a movie where someone had a universal remote that controlled the universe? Oh, yeah. Wasn't that Norbit? No, it's Click. You know it's Click. That was not a difficult one. I'm glad they got it because that would have hurt my soul. Like, how do you not know that?
There's still a larger point, though, because we look at these covers in Netflix all the time. So I think some of us are going to pick up on taglines more than we would in years past because we're always scrolling through the covers of films. But
look, that may be the case. That may be the case. But the other thing to remember is that taglines are not fixed. There are multiple taglines for many movies, and taglines often change in like DVD releases of certain movies. So it's still a tricky category. But yeah, Click was. It's basically like saying, "Hey, you ever see Click?" Like that was the question, basically. So.
And I just realized that Netflix cut their thumbnails in half a couple years ago. So they're not even showing the full covers like they used to, but still some are still ingrained in my mind for films that I will never watch just because of scrolling through Netflix for all those years. But Only Stupid Answers, their 3-pointer. Come on. The director of Boys in the Hood.
That hurt. That hurts so bad.
If you're playing in the Schmoedown, you have to know the director of Boys in the Hood. I'm sorry, but that's just inexcusable. That's one of those questions, one of those, oh my God questions that everybody needs to know. 23-19 at that point, 4-point lead for Critically Acclaimed. Only Stupid Answers are 5-pointer. What was Cameron's car in Ferris Bueller's Day Off? Like I said, folks, Skaliski, once he zeroes in on a film, he loves to pull it for all it's worth. What was the car? Ferrari. Their guess was Corvette. That was incorrect. Critically Acclaimed wins in their debut 23-19. You guys were denied a potential record because of the TKO. And yeah, you won by 4, but that clearly does not reflect how much control you had in this match. So, William, tell me your response to your debut as a team.
We kicked ass. Like, that's what else do you want from me? Like, look, we played some small ball in the middle, and it paid off fine. We had a good opponent, honestly. Like, they were untested. I was unfamiliar with them, and they held their own. They stuck in there. They came down to their last third round question. But I think we proved something. I think we proved that the Growling Commandos are a force to be reckoned with, and Critically Acclaimed in particular. I think we proved to everyone who last week was like, who the hell is Whitney Seibold? This the hell is Whitney Seibold, and he is super smart. And we didn't even get into some of the categories in which like he knows more than I do or vice versa. Like, we complement each other real, real well. If you listen to the B Movies podcast, his strengths are not my strengths and vice versa. So we're going to be great. I think also, I was really proud of ourselves for actually thinking about some team strategy a little bit and not just getting cocky, because look, we're cocky guys. We like to show off. This is half the fun of it. I think we did real, real good, and I'm super proud of ourselves, and growl, basically.
Was Whitney as bothered as I was when Emma said Seibold instead of Seibold?
I don't remember him talking about it. He's got one of those names. It's not an easy name. Everyone's always like, oh, it's Whitney Seibold. And then you hear it pronouncing like, oh, it's Seibold. Like at least 2 or 3 different reaction videos did that. So I think he's used to it by now, but for all I know, it's still a little dagger in his heart.
Aaron and Frank, before I get your reactions to the match, I just want to point out that in the post interviews, it looks like Critically Acclaimed is being put on a collision course to play top, bottom 10. So I don't know if that's my preferred destination, but that's what we're getting because the league wants to see the Beast square off against Josh Mocha to some extent. So Aaron and Frank, Aaron, let me start with you. Give me your overall reaction to the match and what you think of the developments in the post interview.
I think some of your pronunciations were incorrect. But
are you sick, Brian? You don't sound well. You're saying weird things now.
May have to resurrect the mispronunciation of the week, but we'll talk about that later. You know, there are times in this league where a team debuts or we see a debut, whether it be the Patriots when they played the Mega Powers and smoked them, or IGN when they won by KO over Nerdist. And now we see another team, Critically Acclaimed, come in here. And I know that we, as fans, tend to just like anoint, like, oh my God, it's the second coming. They're going to kill everybody. And they may. they will may. And it's just all of those thoughts that, you know, I had from following these guys for a long time. And I mean, even going back to months ago when I would talk about it, I'm like, man, when Whitney gets in here and these guys mix it up, it's going to be something. And I remember telling even Christian himself, like, dude, you get Whitney in here with Bibbs and it's going to be, somebody's going to get their ass kicked. And we're seeing it, man. And it's just kind of like that validation. Like I felt it and it happened. So I was over the moon impressed. And I think for the first time in the history of the Schmoedown, we had a team interview themselves because they're pros and that's what they do. So they'll take it from here, which I love that line. It was great. I think it was the first time we've ever seen that. So a lot of firsts, very impressive work from these gentlemen.
Look, this is one for the record books, and I don't think I tweeted this one out, but I'm saying it now. So,
because they didn't get their round 3 questions, so it's a shame that they didn't get a chance to set a record overall.
Oh, well, I'm about to tell you about another record they set, though.
Oh, I'll take it.
Yeah. So previously, in 2015, Team Champs of Merle and Riley, and Team Schmoes of obviously Christian and Mark Ellis. In that tournament, they had scored in 2 separate matches, obviously, 90.91% correct, answering their questions. In this match, Critically Acclaimed, you guys only missed 2 questions, one in the second round, one in the first round, which was yours, Bibbs. And that came out to a 91.3% answer rate, which is the number 1 answer rate of all time in the history of the team league. Quite a feat considering the teams you've eked out, Champs, Schmoes, and then here, let me just run you down the leaders of the answer rate. Right now, it's Critically Acclaimed at the top, followed by Champs, Schmoes. Top 10 actually has the 3 next scores. 6 Degrees has one in there, and then top 10, Patriots, Champs, Wolves of Steel, ranging from 91.3% correct all the way down to 81.48%. So some very high answer rates, and Critically Acclaimed is now king of having the best single answer rate for one match.
Okay, I guess we could just pack it up now then. We're number 1, right? We can just
That's it.
dust off our hands and get out. Yeah.
Go ahead and mail in those team title belts if you don't mind. Just go ahead and send them over to the Cancel Too Soon studio. You don't have a studio, but you know
it's my apartment. Yeah.
There you go.
Send it over to my apartment.
Hey, before we get to our next segment, well, we have a new segment, and this actually applies to the Beast. That's why it's fitting to do it. So it's tentatively called the Ward Wing, where we discuss the Schmoedown's greatest fan artist and his artwork created for this week's matches. To start, he created a Beauty and the Beast take. A lot of people seem to miss Ricky's head as the rose, but it's kind of brilliant when you think about the fact that Ricky could be the blessing or he could be the curse, like the rose represented to an extent. So, Beast, tell me your thoughts on this brilliant poster.
I think it's a brilliant poster. Not only does it celebrate Critically Acclaimed, but it's really well put together. I mean, I do Photoshop. I do a lot of Photoshop every single day. So I can tell bad Photoshop. And oftentimes you see bad Photoshop on professional movie posters. This was good. This was well integrated. The lighting all matched. I don't know where he got some of those pictures because they were perfectly placed in the right angles. It was well incorporated. It was well designed. I think it's really brilliant. There's an element of the poster that you don't necessarily pick up on the first time you see it, and then you see it again the next time, and it makes it even better. Because that Ricky head in the flower and he's yelling, it's so damn funny. Listen, I did not like that remake of Beauty and the Beast at all, but that was a great poster. That was a great poster that he did.
Of course, we're talking about our friend of the show, partner of the show, Brian Ward. He briefly considered a King Kong idea, but you just couldn't pass up Beauty and the Beast after Bibb said it in the kayfabe special. So it's amazing what inspires people to create such great works of art. Titan, anything to add on this poster?
Incredible work, man. Brian is nice enough to tag the show Twitter when he puts up a new poster. So whenever the day that a match is happening, I always wake up to a piece of his art, and I got to be one of the first people to see it before it goes live. Maybe not, but I like to think that I am.
I was the first.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Of course, but it's just always cool to see what he comes up with, whether it be Beauty and the Beast or Baby Carrot's Driver or whatever happens. And the Beauty and the Beast one gave me a particular chuckle because of just Ricky and the Flower, and it just everything fits so perfectly. So well done by him.
We also made a motion poster. This was something that he hasn't really done before. He's usually made just static posters, but he made a dynamic motion poster for Killer and Miss Method's matchup. He's not going to do this regularly, he says. It's just a temporary option that he was exploring because he was making so many posters that were riffing on movies that he said he wanted a kind of a departure from his signature style. But make sure to follow Brian at Brian E. Ward on Twitter. Check out his website, which includes an archive for all Schmoedown artwork at brianeward.com. He's got some great original work on there as well. So
I want to talk about one more fan-involved piece of art that does involve the Beast. And it was done by a friend of the show, a friend of mine, Chris Clark. He made the Ballad of the Beast, a wonderful song with a lot of Schmoevillians intertwined in there. And Bibbs, I just want to get your thoughts on that. Have you heard the Ballad of the Beast, and what did you think of it?
Oh, I heard the Ballad of the Beast. Chris Clark, by the way, is great. He's one of the biggest boosters of our podcasts, and he's been, very supportive of us in all of the forums and everything, and he's great. And he's done some cool fan art for us, but that song was above and beyond. And that wasn't like a little jingle either. He did American Pie. That is not an easy feat. He wrote all the lyrics. The lyrics made me laugh. I really want to run into Pruitt Taylor Vince one day and apologize for taking his truck. He incorporated my cat Sergio, which is actually technically my wife's cat. So one thing that was slightly off about it, but everything else was spot on. And it was really cool. But honestly, the best moment in that was the end when there were other people joined in and we saw that they recorded videos and everything for it. I felt so accepted at that moment that I choked up a bit. Like, it was just a really, really, really nice thing for people who I either know tangentially or have even never met to have done something just because they liked what I did on a show and they thought it was neat. And that was really, really touching. So that was really cool. Like I said, the Schmoedown fans are amongst the best people in the world. And I'm very, very grateful for all that. I hope they haven't all left because we betrayed Roku. I hope we haven't lost them all. I don't know how it works exactly. Maybe they're all mad, but it was really great. And that was a really, really cool thing.
Well, if you look very, very closely with a very keen eye at the end of that video, you may see your faithful Schmoedown Rundown host in that last ballad where we all sing the chorus. So I'm in there. I'm just saying. It was Miss Movies versus Mike Kalinowski in a singles matchup. It was Batman versus Harley Quinn. It was interesting. A lot of cosplay going on. I got to shout out Jen Sturger here for Miss Movies makeup and wig. That was all Jen. Great job there. Almost to the T. Well, it pretty much was to the T. I don't know why I said almost. It's pretty spot on to the screen used or screen worn face of Margot Robbie. And of course the wig is actually the bigger feat in my opinion, because that's not a Harley wig. That's not just something that she brought up and just stuck on her head. Well done, Jen. And not only is she a good backstage interviewer, but big help to the makeup department as well. So good job there. And Mike Kalinowski coming out to the of course the Justice League theme with the Batman suit on, the Ben Affleck Batman suit. So maybe Mike Kalinowski is auditioning for a role? I don't know. The way it's going, who knows? But Frank, let me get your thoughts here. We got Miss Movies as Harley Quinn. We got Mike Kalinowski's Batman. We got the whole DC Comics thing going on here. What did you think?
Yeah, it was very fitting for Comic-Con week. For one, Brianne continues to surprise me. Her cosplaying, her costumes for the Schmoedown, just really good stuff. And Mike, he's got some really cool Batman suits. So I don't know how much more he's got in the closet, but I definitely would love to see what's the next iteration of Batman suit that he may wear.
There you go. Now, Bibbs, I got to ask you this. As somebody that has yourself, you have great entrances. They're well thought out. You see somebody like Miss Movies and you see somebody like Mike Kalinowski with their entrances. Does it make you like, oh, man, they got a good one. Now I got to step up my game even more? Or is it just kind of like, oh, that was fun?
I got to spend $600.
Believe me, there have been things that I've wanted to do, and I then put together a budget for them, and I'm like, I don't have $500 right now. I have so many cool ideas I want to do for this, and I do not have the money. So believe me, we tried hard. But when I see someone like particularly Brianne, who always, I mean, we see people dress up before, and it's great, but Brianne goes 150%. And she is so good at that. She not only wears the costume, she's in character. She stays in character. I love that the Schmoedown has found this beautiful like intersection of the Venn diagram between like film critics and theater kids. Because I was a theater kid for a long time, and the opportunity to dress up and yell and put on a little show at the beginning of every match, that's the fun of it. So yeah, I see what Brianne is doing. When I see a really, really good intro, part of me is mad I didn't think of it myself. And then the other part of me is, great! This is awesome. They should all be this good. We should all be trying all the time to make it better and more exciting and more diverse, more dynamic, different types of introductions. I think my favorite introduction I've seen in a long time was actually when Tough Beats did Footloose. It was so cheerful and exciting, and it made you really want to watch the match, and it made you want to root for them because they were just cute kids. Like they were just like so much fun, and they brought the energy in the room up so great. I was so mad I wasn't on set that day and I couldn't have danced. Like it was so cool. So yeah. So anyway, but Brianne is bringing it, and she is great, and she is just getting better and better as a competitor too. So I love every single thing she does. And then Mike Kalinowski, he's got the one thing. He's got the Batman thing, but he is mixing it up, and he is trying to add a little something to it every single time. I wonder how long he can keep that going if he stays in the league. I mean, there really only have been that many, at least movie Batman suits. So are we going to get like the ice Batman suit from Batman and Robin? That'd be cool. Like, I just want to see where he's going to go.
Yeah, suggested by Jen Sturger, of course, I believe the nipple Batman suit. And Brian, what did you think of these intros? What did you think of Miss Movies is doing her Harley Quinn and Mike Kalinowski as the Batman?
Well, last week, Frank Janisch and I had an argument about Miss Movies being kind of quiet. And I said, if she's going to be quiet, and Jay's the mouthpiece of that stable, of course, understandably, he's got experience in actual wrestling and whatnot. But if she's going to be quiet for the most part, I at least want to hear her drop her catchphrase. And sure enough, like I said last week, Jay set her up perfectly on various occasions to where she could say dismissed, you're dismissed. So I was very happy to see that, especially since it won the argument from last week with Frank. So that's always fun. But Brianne, for some reason, after their last team match where she came out on the other side, it didn't go as she had planned. So in this match, she once again avoided the curtain and came in on the opposite side to kind of catch everybody off guard. So I guess she wasn't satisfied with her last elimination match against Tough Beats, as she had to go with the opposite entrance again. This one was certainly more effective. And let me ask you guys, whose idea do you think it was for Brianne to hand pudding to Mike Kalinowski before the match started in order to get in his head? Whose idea do you think that was?
That was mine.
I'm going to assume it was hers, but you're going to say it was yours.
Yeah.
It was definitely mine, and it became hers thanks to me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
No, DMs, brothers.
We're gonna cut that, right? We're cutting that off the episode.
How dare you? How dare you?
All of that is cut. Well, something that's not going to be cut is round one, and we'll get there. Mike Kalinowski, 6 points. Brianne gets 5 points, so 6-5 early on. Pretty tight going. Frank, you got any thoughts here on round one?
Well, Mike, in singles, he goes back-to-back 6 points in round one. Did it in his last match. Did it here again. So he's at least being consistent, and I think competitors going forward should realize, yeah, he's going to put up 6, maybe 7 points. Hey, who knows? Maybe even 8 points. So 6 points is a pretty good mark because the league average is just about 4 to 5 points. So he's just
that's
a little
the
bit
league
above.
Average, really? Oh,
yeah. It's not as good as you would like it to be. It's actually getting a little bit better as the year has gone on. When the year first started, it was pretty bad. But as the year has gone on, the scores in the first round has gone up just a little bit. It's getting better now. So this was a pretty good competitive first round, and I still wasn't really sure who could take it because that second round, as we'll get to, is really the one that makes the match most of the time.
Well, not an average critically acclaimed score. Let's put it that way. But Bibbs, what did you think of round one here? Did you think that we had tight match going through here? Did you have a winner early on? What'd you think?
No, I mean, I didn't necessarily have a winner. Part of me, I just admire everything Brianne does. So I was cheering her on a little bit. But actually, this was actually a relatively tough round one. I find what happens in round one is that usually they're pretty straightforward questions, but then there'll just be like one weird one where you're just like, there were other sisters in The Little Mermaid? I totally spaced out on that. I'm not sure I would have just guessed a number on that, honestly. Like, I've seen The Little Mermaid. I like The Little Mermaid. Totally forgot she had sisters. So that was not an easy question. There's a couple of those in this one. I'm trying to remember what the other one was. I thought was a little on the hard side. But, yeah, they kept it together. They kept it together real good. It was a good showing, I think, for both of them.
What do you think, Brian?
Well, Armageddon and Deep Impact just cannot escape each other. These movies will always be mentioned in the same sentence, in the same breath. I like that Insomnia popped up in round one. It's Christopher Nolan week right now, so I like that we got a call back to his first studio picture. And I am stunned that Brianne missed the Dax Shepard chips question. It was a recent release. That's one of those things where even if you haven't seen the movie, you should know that. So I'm very disappointed that she missed that. I'm stunned that she missed the Ariel question because she is really been outspoken as far as the league needing to get better at animation. She prides herself on her animation knowledge, but animation is still difficult for everyone, even if you're a fan. The big issue for me was question 7 for a number of reasons. Luigi in Super Mario Brothers, they called it a family film. I know it's about brothers, but isn't this a video game film? Beast, you're a professional film critic. Is video game movies or adaptations an actual genre at this point?
I actually would say yes. I think they are, at the very least, as much as, say, coming of age is. It's sort of a general category, and there's a lot you can do within it. If that had its own slice on the wheel, I would not fight it. I would be like, yeah, fair enough. I wouldn't take issue with it being a family film because I think it's also a family film. It's obviously catering more towards little kids, that particular film. I don't think every video game film is a family film. I actually took umbrage when they said that nobody likes that movie. I think that movie's really fun. It's a terrible adaptation of Super Mario Brothers, but there's a lot of really weird, entertaining stuff in it. And you can't help but watch that movie and go, what the hell were they thinking? And I love watching that movie and doing backwards gymnastics to try to figure out why they did that. Like, what they started out with Super Mario Brothers, and then they ended up with Lizard Man Blade Runner. And I just don't know how that happened, and I love trying to figure it out. So I find that movie rather entertaining.
I miss Bob Hoskins as much as the next guy, but the main issue with this question, John Leguizamo was the answer as to who played Luigi. That tied it up 5-5. However, Kalinowski misspelled and mispronounced Leguizamo. He said Leguizama. Brianne misspelled it, but she pronounced it correctly despite answering after Killer Kalinowski. So this is another example of leeway being given. And if you think back to last week where certain players mispronounced certain names, they were not given that leeway. So
I'm sorry. I've heard a lot of talk about this whole mispronunciation issue, and I think it's a lot more cut and dry than people are giving it credit for. I think it's actually really simple. I think when it comes down, because we're looking at pronunciation and we're looking at spelling. Pronunciation is tricky because a lot of these names, you're not necessarily talking to John Leguizamo, and you might get his name slightly off. You don't know how to pronounce it because you've read it so many times. And when it comes to spelling, okay, a little off is fine. But for me, it's real simple. If you mispronounce a part of a name that has multiple pronunciation possibilities, that's one thing. If you mess up the consonants, you're wrong. So, for example, if you had said Cuba Gooding Jr. instead of Cuba Gooding Jr., which a lot of people have done, I'll give it to you. I would say that's fine. If you said Gouda Gooding Jr. and then say, yeah, I know he was in Jerry Maguire, I don't care. You don't know that name. You didn't just, get the vowel sound wrong. So he got the vowel wrong a little bit. I probably would have given that to him, although if Brianne won the challenge, I think she would have had an argument.
But when you split hairs, Damien Chazelle versus John Leguizamo, when it comes to guys like Mike, guys that are faces, guys that are well-liked, they're going to get certain calls that the heels in the league may not get. I referenced Michael Jordan last week and how he would get every call in the world. But in the case of certain players, they're not going to get those whistles. So that's an example of that, in my opinion.
Well, I will say his pronunciation last week, Tom Dinge's pronunciation of Chadwick Boseman, was not close. That was way off. I don't think that's a false call at all. I'm trying to remember, what exactly did he say for Damien Chazelle?
I'm pretty sure he said Damien Chazelle.
Okay, see, I heard Chazelle. Maybe I'm remembering it wrong. Again, my philosophy is, if you get the consonants right and you don't add stuff, everything's right, but you use the different pronunciation of the A, use the long A or the short A, I'll let you have it because clearly you read it. Clearly you know it. But if you're saying Chazik instead of Chadwick, you don't know the name.
I'm just curious what would have happened if Dagnino was the one who said John Leguizamo. What would they have done? How would they have ruled it in that case? Because there is a little bit of a not bias. I'm not saying it's pushed in a certain direction, but certain players just get certain calls based on who they are. JTE doesn't get those calls. Snyder doesn't usually get those calls. So it just depends. But we don't have to spend forever on this. But the eighth question, Galaxy Quest quote, that was a very, very difficult question, but not for us because we're big Galaxy Quest fans. So,
I've hosted midnight screenings of Galaxy Quest. It's a classic. It's a classic. It's the new Clue. It's a classic.
In round two, it was Miss Movies getting dance movies, a category that she had a hand in creating, as we've heard. She goes 3 of 4 for 4 points. There's a little bit more to dig into there in her second round. We'll get to that here in a second. Mike Kalinowski gets 2,000s. He goes 3 of 4 for 5 points. So it's 13-9. Kalinowski after the second. He did get a 2-point steal for cassette tapes in Footloose. Hence, we have an issue. Now, this was brought up to me at a later point. I did not catch it initially, but it was brought to my attention that answer that was given of a license being taken actually may have been a correct answer. Now, Bibbs, I'm going to confer to you on this one because I believe there's been some confirmation on your part as well that you believe this also to be a correct answer.
I think that's a tricky situation because I think, if memory serves, he confiscates the tapes, but he also takes the license. Now, I think he gives it back by the end of the scene, but they did not say takes and keeps it or confiscates it. They just say take it. So I think there is a decent argument to be made that Brianne's answer was correct. I think they had the answer they wanted in mind, but I think this is another one where it's got to be very clearly articulated, or you get that wiggle room and you get people either during the match or afterwards as they remember things more clearly going, hey, technically no, or technically that could go another direction. There are multiple interpretations of this one. I remember one thing I remember thinking was in the question that came up a little while ago of who has lost the most Academy Awards, and the answer they were looking for was Peter O'Toole. Peter O'Toole has not lost the most Academy Awards. He has lost the most without ever winning. Meryl Streep has lost more Academy Awards than Peter O'Toole has, because I think she's been nominated like what was it, like 19 times and won only 3. So she's lost a lot. So it's all about phrasing, and you can fight it, you can argue it. Maybe they'll see your argument, but this is going to come up. This is why we have challenge rules, and this is why we do this, because we like competing and talking about it and trying to figure out who's right and what's the right interpretation of a scene and what we remember about these movies. So it's frustrating, but I get it. It's annoying.
Frank, what do you think? And we have a controversy here, or is it something you're not even concerned with?
I'm not too concerned with it. I mean, look, this stuff is going to happen, and that's why the challenge rule has been put in place. We can't expect everything to be 100%. We'd like it to be, but sometimes things fall through the cracks, and the challenge rule is there to kind of help, hopefully, bridge that gap if need be. And I think this is a second thing we can point towards, at least for Brianne, that she could have challenged, and maybe it goes her way, maybe it doesn't. We don't know. The challenge never happened. I wasn't even aware of it at the time. I can't even remember the last time I saw Footloose, so I wasn't even thinking about it.
Boo!
I'm sorry. It's not in my regular rotation. Sorry.
I was also one of the people campaigning for dance category. She started it, but I was totally in her corner. I think it's a well-deserved category.
I apologize. Brian Davids, what did you think of this? Do we have controversy here? What's going on?
We absolutely have controversy, and I actually went back and watched the scene in Footloose question, because that is what I do. That is my commitment to the show. That is why we do this show, so that the creators of the show, the producers of the show, can learn from these things that they may not recognize in the moment. The first takeaway, before I get into specifics, is that Chris Skaliski, he needs help. He needs help in the worst way. He cannot do it all anymore. I said 7 months ago, Christian Harloff needs help. He started delegating items. He got the help that he needed. Chris Skaliski, it's challenging enough to write questions. He needs someone there to proof and to fact check some of those questions, because he cannot do it all when this league keeps growing and growing and growing. Now to the question itself. In Footloose, what do the cops take from Ren when they pull him over? It's not what do they take away, it's what do they take. In that scene, they take 2 things: the driver's license and a cassette tape. We do not see anything get handed back to Ren. Not the driver's license, not the tape. The tape is confiscated. We do not see the driver's license being handed back. So based on how the question is worded, Brianne was correct, because they did take the driver's license. It was not returned in the actual footage. So this is a perfect example of a point that I've made a lot recently, as the wording of certain questions can completely throw off a competitor even when they know the answer. The cops in Footloose took 2 items. 2 items. If the question wanted to know what they took away from Ren, then the phrase takeaway must be utilized. Otherwise, this has 2 answers. Again, when you don't have the luxury of seeing these questions like the viewer does, every word becomes amplified in your mind as you're trying to come up with the answer. So if there's a missing word, like there was in this case, you interpret the question much differently than you would if away was included in the question for takeaway. So it's a shame that a great match came down to the omission of a single word. Those 2 points might have resulted in a huge upset win for Miss Brianne Chandler, Miss Method herself.
I'm going to take issue with one thing you said. Just one thing, which is, it's more of the tone, really, because I think Skaliski is doing a good job. He's doing a tough job.
Absolutely.
Maybe and listen, it's a job that if I wasn't competing, I would want. I would want to do that job. That's a cool job. You get to write trivia questions for a game show. Awesome. I want that job. But the problem isn't so much with Skaliski or even Harloff. It's just the show wants to be big. This show should be on Comedy Central or something. Like, I'm not just saying that because I'm on it. It's a real game show with a lot of moving parts and a lot of elements to the production. And it should be done. It deserves to be done with a bigger budget than Harloff has right now, which is why every time you tell someone about the show, it helps. Every time you link to the show, it helps. Every time you click like on YouTube, it helps because it gives him more opportunities to make it bigger and get the staff he needs to do it not just well, which I think he's doing now, but to do it as well as it really deserves to be. And it really should be a big deal. So I'm sympathetic to Kalinowski. I'm sympathetic to Harloff. It's frustrating when mistakes happen. They happen in other shows too. They happen in Jeopardy, for God's sake. So again, we need to call it out when it happens because it makes us better every single time. But man, it's a tough gig, and they're doing the best they can.
They need a writer of the questions and an editor of the questions. And as Christian said to us on the show recently, there's still a guerrilla operation like you just relayed, Bees. So eventually they're going to have someone that'll not only help them write questions, but edit and proof and make sure there's no interpretation issues or misinterpretations. So I want to go back to question 2 in round 2 because this leads to another example of this where Clark was asked, who is the lead in X movie? And question 2 asked, who was the lead character in My Big Fat Greek Wedding? I went to war with people over the fact that lead character is a phrase. That is a real phrase that people refer to. Actors, when they say they audition for the lead, they are implying the lead character. Yet so many commenters were like, oh, no, it refers to lead actor. No one knows what a lead character is because it doesn't exist. It's just lead actor or lead actress. So they learned from that mistake with Clark, and they're now writing questions designating lead character or lead actor. So because of this show and other feedback, of course, they are learning from such mistakes, and I'm proud to see that when it happens.
To round 3 where there was no controversy at all.
Oh, hang on. One last thing for round 2. I just want to say this right now. We finally had a full dance category and not one step-up question that hurt my soul. Moving on.
Okay.
Because those are the best movies ever. Moving on.
Chris Kalinowski, take a note. We want some step-up questions in there.
Well, I also just want to say, I really felt bad for Brianne. I didn't feel bad for Brianne getting the dance category, but there's so much pressure on you to get these questions right, especially when you've campaigned for this category, and now you get it. You're almost, it's kind of like Rachel in her debut match getting Oscars in that second round. She's been touted. She's really good in Oscars. She gets Oscars, and she does a really good job with it. But I just feel like if you get a category, especially one you've been championing for a while, and then you get 4 points out of it, that's got to be somewhat of defeating, a defeating feeling. And so I really felt bad for Brianne because I was like, oh, I just hope she crushes it because it was set up, for her to really crush this round and take a lead, and the events went the other way.
It's like the assumption that a stand-up comedian would want the comedy category because they're a stand-up comedian.
Subtle, very subtle.
The one thing I'm going to say about that, and I know we need to move on, but the one thing I'm going to say about that is that doesn't necessarily mean dance movies is an easy category. Sure. I think the real battle was getting dance movies accepted as a legitimate genre, which it is. And there's a ton of movies in the dance movie genre. There's rules within the dance movie genre. It's a legitimate genre. I remember back when people wouldn't accept slasher movies as a real genre. All right? They're a real genre. Maybe it's not your bag. So the fact that it was on there, that there were real questions out of it, and yeah, honestly, I think even the fact that they weren't all layups is a testament to the dance movie genre, and I think we need to see more of it on the wheel.
My favorite dance movie is The Sure Thing.
Shut up.
Oh, God.
There's no dancing in that movie.
Exactly.
Well, it kind of like, you make a good point there because dance and musical, two completely different things. Like
there's overlap, but they're not the same thing.
I just feel like a novice person, you would say like Dirty Dancing. Oh, it's a musical. No, it's not.
Not at
all, actually. So
no.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm glad we cleared that up. Let's jump to round 3, where Mike Kalinowski was up 13-9, so he led off with Miss Movies, who got her 2-point question. Kramer versus Kramer was the answer. She also got her 3-pointer, which was John Travolta as the Archangel Michael in that film. So we jump back to Mike Kalinowski. He got the question right. Thank goodness. The 2-pointer. There were 3 Mighty Ducks movies, Mighty Ducks D2, and of course D3 when they went to college. I would have been very upset if he did not get those. That's my childhood. So we came down to Brianne Chandler here. 15-14 is the score. She has to get the 5-pointer. And when you know it, James Bond films. And as we've seen before, James Bond is one of those snake-bitten categories. It is a movie release dates. It is a westerns. It is something that you just, as a viewer, I cringe every time I hear James Bond as a category. It did not go well for Miss Movies. The answer was Q, and Mike Kalinowski defeats Brianne Chandler 15-14. Frank, tie me up here. What did you think?
Ooh, let me get into this Bond question because before the show, Brian had brought it to my attention if I had any kind of information on Bond, because it has somewhat of an infamous history in this league right now. And so I don't have exactly a full detailed history on the Bond question. I have just basically anything that happened in the third/final round, except for the Roca-Riley match, title match, in that speed round. There was a Bond question that they neglected to even attempt answering. But outside of that, there's been 2 Bond questions asked in the singles division. Both have been 5-pointers. That was once in the Makuga Finstock match, or fake stock, however you want to call that. That was asked to Finstock, could not get it correct. And then the second time it was asked in the singles division, it was this one right here. Again, a 5-pointer, could not be answered. If you look at the teams, it happened. It's happened twice this past year.
Wait a minute. The Harloff match with me and Harloff. He had a Bond question at the end. Was which Bond movie had Pussy Galore in it? That was his last question. Unless it was like a different category and it just happened to be like it was action adventure and it was a James Bond question. But I thought it was a James Bond category.
You're right. It might have been that under action adventure.
Okay. Well, in that case, fair enough.
Yeah.
Frank, we're gonna have to talk after class.
Yeah. I don't keep detailed information on action adventure categories, but in the teams, it's been asked twice. Once in the third round, the final round, and then it was asked actually in the infamous Patriots Trek title match. It was asked to Mance as a 3-point question. He actually got it right. He's the only one who's got it right in the final round there, aside from, I guess, Harloff now, as it's been pointed out to me. And yeah, so hasn't been very kind to competitors throughout the history of this league.
You know, James Bond is an interesting category. I think I love Righty Levels because it seems so obvious. It's a popular franchise to this day. It has over 50 years of history to it. Yeah. And not everyone knows the James Bond movies from like way back. And even this question actually was kind of tricky. Because Ken Knapsack kind of mispronounced Boothroyd. He said Boothrod. So, but that shouldn't have been too much of an issue. But Q hasn't been referred to that since, I think, Dr. No. Like, it's been a long time. That's not a common question. That was actually a pretty tough question if you don't really know James Bond. But yeah.
1962.
Yeah, it's a continuously running over 20-part franchise, and that's not even if you include the original Casino Royale or Never Say Never Again. It's a long one, and that's a lot of history. And that's a lot of different eras. And not everyone is familiar with every single aspect of it. So it's a tough category. I'd say it's a lot tougher than Star Wars. Star Wars, I mean, the Schmoedown, I assume they only think like 8 movies in the Star Wars series count, even though there's like a dozen. So, yeah, that's pretty condensed compared to James Bond. Lord of the Rings is a category. There's like 6, arguably 9 movies in that franchise if you include the animated movies. James Bond has been going on for over 20. That's a complicated category, and not everyone's going to be really, really skilled in it. Also, it's another one of those ones where I'm not entirely sure everyone knows what a hard James Bond question is, because I thought the Pussy Galore thing was super easy. But the Q question's actually kind of hard. I'll give him that.
Brian, what do you think?
I was very impressed by Brianne's first 2 polls, Kramer versus Kramer, the Michael John Travolta movie. Incredible poll. I was screaming, Michael, Michael, Michael. Very excited when she took the lead briefly. Mighty Ducks keeps popping up. So competitors that are listening, Beast, you're a competitor. 0 in on Mighty Ducks because we've seen that trend at this point. Yeah, the Q question threw me off as well. As a kid, I had every James Bond VHS tape organized in chronological order, and even I did not know the answer. So tough question for a 5-pointer. The killer takes the win, 15-14, and he had his own pudding plan in place besides the one that I donated generously to Brianne before the match. He handed out pudding snacks, so at least he's got a sense of humor about his big flub and inner geekdom. I'm hung up on this Footloose question because the momentum could have swung completely in Brianne's favor. Who knows? So I'm just disappointed for her.
It would have forced Mike to answer his 3 and 5 pointer.
No, he probably still would have won, but it just that was a turning point in the match.
Yeah,
clearly.
It was a 4-point
By the way,
swing,
Jen
so.
Sturger is fabulous. She's really coming to her own. I know I'm jumping ahead a bit, but I gotta make sure that this is known. She's fabulous on the Schmoedown now. She needed some reps previously. She got them. She's fabulous.
All right, well, let's talk about the post-match interview here. I got to shout out Jay Washington for his quote, talking about Finstock, of course, or Tom Dagnino. "You are the most loudest," and that's not even a grammatically correct phrase. Well done, sir. Well done. I found that incredibly entertaining, and I got to say, I haven't given Jay the credit that he should get on the mic. The guy's incredible. He's just an incredible presence, but he's really great on the mic, and I am a big fan of Tom Dagnino and what he does on the stick. But Jay Washington, man, he is right there, and he is compelling, and he understands what to go for here. I really enjoy him. Bibbiani, I want to kind of get your take here. What do you think of Jay Washington, and does he intimidate you a little bit?
Oh, I don't know about intimidate me. I will say this: he is a god. He is so good on the mic. He is someone that we were all sort of paying attention to. Like, oh God, we got to step up our game. Jay Washington is bringing it. Like, he's great. He's so great. I'm worried about any sort of day in which I have to be smack talking with Jay Washington, because I'm going to try to bring it, and I'm a little concerned I'm going to end up cowering in a corner because he's so damn good. Yeah, he's phenomenal. And look, I want to tear apart every single person in the league, but sometimes you just got to tip your hat. You got to tip your hat and say they know exactly what they're doing, and they're so damn good.
What did you think here, Frank? What did you think of Jay Washington here?
It was great. I mean, he's been great on the mic since he's really been a part of the Schmoedown. But one thing that stood out to me during this, I don't know if any of you guys caught this, but his hat. His hat was swerving all over his head every time he would move his head from one side to the other, and I just could not stop looking at it. I thought it was the funniest thing ever. If you didn't catch it, go back and watch his hat. It's so crazy and silly. But yeah, it was just the funniest thing. Yeah.
Brian, what did you think here of Mr. Washington?
Jay is great. He's great. However, he stepped aside in this post-match for Brianne to have some mic time. She's been silent lately. She's dished out her catchphrase, but she took the mic this time, and I think she was the story in this post-match interview because she set the room on fire. She dismissed Jay, and she was talking about how Mike was the favorite, according to the fans. And she said, shoving him down our throats, no shit, he's the favorite. And one of the quotes from Mike Kalinowski, it said, within a couple weeks, he said this to Roxy, of course, we've made a name for ourselves. So I'm not going to explain that, but within a couple weeks, we've made a name for ourselves. Brianne then says, of course he's the favorite. They've been shoving him down your throats. Then she says, to all you misfits, nobody shoved me down your throat. So what Brianne is saying is she's had a tougher go of it as she's had to kind of create her own persona, kind of create her own storylines. She became a heel kind of out of nowhere. This kind of caught Christian by surprise, and they've been able to expand on it. But she's absolutely right, though. She's had to fight and claw, no pun intended, to everything that she's earned so far. She even had a great line about playing Tom. Losers got to play losers, right? So Brianne really dropped some fire during this post-match. And it's just a shame that there always seems to be a question in Brianne or Clark's matches that had it gone their way for some dumb reason, had some dumb little thing not happen. This one question may have changed the entire match, may have given them at least a couple more victories. So it's just a bummer that it had to end this way. But look, she dropped the fire, and I love seeing this competitiveness in Brianne. She's great for the league.
I want to say a couple of things about Brianne. She is another one who, whether you're a face or a heel in this league, you need to watch Brianne and what she is doing. She is on fire in a lot of different ways. She's letting Jay do a lot of the talking, but look at that opening where she's in a straitjacket and she's just staring at the camera with the crazy eyes. She is just selling it. She knows exactly what she's doing. It's very intimidating, and it's great. And even, you look at her word choice, it's very, very careful. She's branding herself so beautifully. You're not dismissed. You're dismissed.
Yeah.
Her fans are misfits. That is great. I wish I thought of some of that. I'd never pull off the Miss moniker, but my God, she is so good at this.
Well, she was addressing her trolls in that case. She called her trolls misfits, which is brilliant as well.
I think the trolls are misfits, but honestly, I think we should maybe consider taking that back and calling her fans misfits. Yeah. Because, we all feel like a misfit now and then. And sometimes the wheel doesn't go our way, or the question doesn't go our way, and we come out on top anyway, like Brian Chandler. She's knocking it out of the park. And I honestly, and more and more, I'm increasingly worried about going up against her in a match. Because I think I can hold my own in the trivia category, but she might just blow me away with showmanship and make me question myself. And that's not easy to do. She's really good at it.
She's been a performer for a long time. High school dance. She was the song leader at USC for their cheer squad, whatever you want to call it. She's got experience entertaining people, and I love how she's using that prior skill set in the strangest way possible now on YouTube. William, I've asked you this before, but were you a performer at a younger age? Were you in high school? Did you have any performing in your background? You may have answered this already, but
I don't remember if we did. But yeah, I was a theater kid in high school. I did a lot of different plays. I was in How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying, and a lot of others. I did a little bit of acting in college when I was in film school. We often acted in each other's short films, and they used me a lot because I was really comfortable in front of the camera because I had done all that theater stuff. And honestly, I consider the podcast to be a form of performance as well, because it's very presentational. You're always aware of your audience. You're having a conversation, but you have to make it very, very clear to everybody. So I think more and more in this 21st century environment of film and TV criticism, especially in the multimedia realm, you have to be at least a little bit of a show person and at least a little aware of how to present yourself, how to talk, how to stand, where to look at in a camera. And I think there's a lot of people who are super smart in this league who haven't necessarily stepped up their theatricality. And there's a lot of people who are so damn good at the theatricality. And honestly, I love every time someone knocks that out of the park. I go, yay! It's awesome. So that's one of the reasons why I try so hard. I want to have fun with this. It's a great outlet.
Here's the thing. Your kayfabe is the most organic. It seems the most natural, where with some people you can tell they're forcing it, they're trying too hard, but your post-credit scenes with Ricky, your I betray you, I'm leaving because I want to, all of your kayfabe has seemed organic and natural. Even the little choral that you had at one of those conventions, was it LA Comic-Con?
It was WonderCon. It was WonderCon. Yeah.
That was all organic. It felt natural. So it's no surprise that you have a performance background of some kind. And man, keep it up.
That's nice of you to say, because honestly, speaking not as the Beast but as William Bibbiani, trying to be intimidating is really weird for me, and I'm trying to access things inside myself that I would normally never articulate. So I always think I come across really awkward and weird, but I'm glad people are enjoying it.
Can you give us some insight or kind of some scoops in regards to your Ricky post-credit scenes? Did you film all of those in one day? Tell me about the process of those, because they were great, of course.
I'm not sure how much I want to ruin the magic. But I mean, look, it wasn't like, if you look at it, there weren't that many sets involved. So you can probably predict that we did it within a certain period of time in a certain confined space. But
you only needed one take. You needed one take, right?
I think we only did one take for most, if not all, of those. So that was a lot of fun. But I don't want to get too much into the nitty gritty of it because I don't think that's what makes it fun.
But you love doing that stuff, though. You love the kayfabe just as much as as playing the actual.
Maybe not as much as performing, but as playing. But it makes me want to come back, even though the studio is in Burbank, and that's a really long drive on a weekday in LA traffic. So, like, the fact that I get to play around and dress up and play a version of myself that's different, that really is an added bonus, and it really, really makes it. I think it's what makes the show, because there's a lot of movie trivia shows out. There's a lot of trivia game shows in general. That theatricality, I think, is the thing that puts the Schmoedown from just being a really good game show to being way over the top. And I remember watching it and thinking to myself, my God, I wish I'd thought of this. It's so fucking smart. I apologize, language. It's so smart.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this. Does your wife watch the Schmoedown, and what does she think of the Beast?
She does. She mostly watches like my episodes. She doesn't watch every single episode as obsessively as I do because I'm studying it and I'm taking notes. And she helped me put all this together.
Wow.
She helps me, like, what I had to ask her, what is kayfabe? I don't even know. Is that a word? Is that, just make that up? Like, she knows so much more about all this stuff than I do. And she's so talented, and she is so smart, and she has so much insight into the competitive aspects. Like, I'm good at the movie trivia. I know the movie trivia. But when it comes down to presenting myself as a person, as a character, when it comes down to the dramatics of it, when it comes down to embracing the possibility that people won't like me as a competitor, but that's okay. I get everything I know. I learned from my wife. She is super talented. She's super smart, and she is. I don't know what I'd be doing right now if it wasn't for her, but I probably wouldn't be doing this. I don't know if I would have been any good at it at all.
Have you ever said growl, growl to her?
I say growl, growl all the time. That's all the time. Everyone, all the time. Because I say it to Sergio, my cat, or our cat. Like, it's just a thing. It was a scorcher. It was an entertaining match, and yeah, it's actually one of the more suspenseful matches I've seen in a while. Everyone was really, really great in it. Hey, everybody, it's me again. I came back just to plug my stuff like a jerk. But I have two different podcasts you can listen to right now. There's the B Movies podcast. We review movies. We interview filmmakers. We talk about movie news. If you want to find out what it's like to be in the same room with Critically Acclaimed, with Whitney Seild and William Bibbiani, as we just talk about movies and get into all of our weird, geeky, odd passions, the B Movies podcast is the way to go. It is on iTunes. We also have a show called Cancel Too Soon. It is a show where we review television series that lasted one season or less. Some of these shows are very famous. Some of these shows are very recent. Some of them are super obscure. And this week, it's one of the best obscure TV shows no one's heard of. It is called Cliffhangers. It is 3 super odd series that were shoved together into one. So you've got a plucky reporter series, you've got a Dracula series, and you have a Cowboys versus Aliens series, all in one show. It aired in 1979. It is one of the best shows you've never seen, and you can learn all about it on Cancel Too Soon, which is also on iTunes, and it is also on Stitcher, and you can find it a whole bunch of different places as well. So thank you, everybody, for listening, and growl, growl.
Well, William, I appreciate you being on the show, and this is, I believe, technically your third time. So one more time, and you will be the record holder. So we appreciate your time.
Any record I can take from Roca, I'm good.
There you go. William Bibbiani, everybody.
We interrupt this amazing episode of the Schmoedown Rundown to bring you this news. Do you like what you've heard so far? Do you like the Schmoedown Rundown? And of course, why wouldn't you? Do us a favor. If you are listening on iTunes, please rate and review the show along with all the other shows on the Schmoes Know feed. If you are watching via YouTube on the SK Plus channel, be sure to like and leave a comment. We would really appreciate that, and it will help out all the other shows on the channel, such as Outlaw Nation with John Roca, the Harloff Podcast with Christian Harloff, The Wanger Show, among the rest of the shows on the channel. Something new for everybody every single day, so definitely check out the SK Plus feed, and the Schmoes Know iTunes feed. And now back to the best looking host on the channel, Aaron Turner.
Alright guys, we're back for team preview action this week. It is an Ultimate Schmoedown team qualifier. Team IGN, Eric Goldman and Jim Vavida versus Team Deep Cuts, Thad and Aaron. Frank, we haven't seen a lot out of Deep Cuts, just one match so far, a victory over the Night Sisters. IGN coming off of a tough loss. How do you see it going? Who do you got?
Yeah, I got IGN. They're answering in the 70 percentile range. The Deep Cuts lone match, they're at 64%. So there is room for improvement. I think they can make it a competitive match, but I just think IGN is really going to come at full force for this match to get into the tournament, and we'll see IGN the victor.
Well said. Brian, how do you see it going? IGN with another victory here, or is Deep Cuts going to make the upset?
Well, IGN, aka the exception to the rule, is hungry for revenge. Vavida and Goldman are going to cut Deep Cuts so deep that Aaron and Thad will need some of those extra special visual effects to stop their own bleeding. Expect IGN to deliver a finishing move that results in Deep Cuts.
I don't really have much to say about this one. Thad, super nice guy. Met him before. But I'm still going with IGN. I think they will absolutely pulverize Deep Cuts. I think you could see maybe the second KO of this season from IGN. So keep an eye out for that. Let's go to the singles preview, where it will be the pit boss, Ken Knapsack, I'm a big fan, versus JTE in a grudge match. Nerds watch Patriots. All kinds of stakes going on here. Brian, I'll start with you on this one. Ken, JTE, war of attrition, who you got?
Well, once Ken's plans to take down the Patriots were temporarily derailed due to my suggestion that Rachel Cushing experiment with alcohol before the Nerds Watch's collision match, playing JTE in singles was always the contingency plan. And while I'm a big fan of Joshua Tapia and Top Den, this match is going to go the way of Ken Knapsack because he's got karma on his side. As we saw with Tom Dagnino recently, the judges aren't going to give JTE the Kalinowski treatment from today. Those mispronunciations that he likes to do, those misspellings that he likes to do, those aren't going to go his way the majority of the time. So that's the price. That's the price of being a Schmoedown heel, unfortunately. So, like I said, I got to take Ken Knapsack to win a wild and entertaining bout.
Frank, what do you think here?
Yeah, this match is going to be rife with fake controversy because Ken is going to win. And let me throw out the numbers here real quick for you. When we look at singles competition, JTE's answering 61% lifetime compared to Ken's two matches. He's answering 54% lifetime. Now, if I look at this year's team performance, JTE's answering 68% correct. Ken is answering 69% correct. And I think JTE is overlooking Ken, and I think Ken is taking this match much more seriously than JTE thinks, and I think that's going to be the difference. Ken is going to come out on top, but it's going to be a close one. It should be a lot of fun.
I'm a Ken Knapsack guy. I say it every time Ken's name is brought up. I like the guy 10 times over. I got JTE here, man. The guy, he's a champion. I like his confidence. He stays away from Frank Janisch in predictions, so he's ahead of the game there. I think he's going to beat Ken. I like what JT's bringing to the table. I think the being on Team Patriots makes him a stronger player. The confidence, yeah, he lost to Clark, but he did beat the Beast, and he's always got that in the back of his mind. I like JTE in this one.
I want to say something real quick about JTE and Snyder as a team. Like I said, JTE was answering 68%. Snyder, he's answering 81% for the team. So you tell me who's the better player.
Well, that wasn't really my comparison.
I know, but I just think I want to throw that out there. Just, just for fun, throw it out there.
But being on a good team kind of does make you confident in yourself. So, like, if B.J. Armstrong is winning NBA titles, we know it's not because of B.J. Armstrong. We know it's because of Michael and Scotty and Dennis Rodman, and John Paxson, and Steve Kerr, and Luke Longley, and Tony Kukoc, and all those other guys. But B.J. Armstrong was on the team, so that counts, right? All right, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of the Schmoedown Rundown. Going to thank William Bibbiani for joining us earlier. Definitely check out his podcast, Canceled Too Soon, and the B Movies podcast. You can catch them every single week. Check him out on Twitter at William Bibbiani. Frank Janisch, where can you be found?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at FrankieJ29. Also, be on the lookout for a Schmoedown reaction video I did with stat pop-ups. That should come out on Sunday.
All right, sounds good. Brian Davis, where can you be found, man?
You guys can follow me on Twitter at BDF331. Check out my TV film podcast at filmschlubspodcast.com. And as always, I want to thank Brian Ward for his help with artwork this week. We love to pay it forward to those who support our show. Check him out at Brian E. Ward, as well as brianeward.com. Check out all his original work, all his Schmoedown work. The guy does it all, so thank you, Brian.
You can follow me on Twitter at ATTitanium. You can catch my pro wrestling podcast, Wanna Wrestle, at soundcloud.com/WannaWrestlePod. My buddy Shane and I will be recapping Battleground, the newest WWE SmackDown pay-per-view that happens on Sunday. And then I also have a long-form thing I'm doing about the life and death of Chris Benoit. So definitely keep a lookout for that. And we will catch you next week. Oh, wait, sorry. Follow the show on Twitter at SD Rundown. We'll see you next Saturday.
William, you and I talked about this last night, but does the Beast want to give a mini review for Dunkirk right now?
Do I? Is anyone?
Do you?
Is that when anyone came here? Okay. Yeah, I missed all of the critic screenings for Dunkirk, and then I finally went to see Dunkirk at midnight last night.
The Beast went to see it.
The
correct?
Beast went to see it. The Beast. Okay, fine. The Beast went to see it, and the Beast thought it was okay. Like it's okay. The Beast thinks it's an incredibly gorgeously produced movie with a lot of incredible and indelible imagery. It is also a storytelling triptych that it tells 3 different stories simultaneously. 2 of them are great, and 1 of them did not connect to me on any particular emotional level, and that brought it down a bit because I felt it was a great engine for suspense, but the fuel for it, the people who desperately needed to be rescued, were the least interesting characters. So it didn't quite work as well as I think it clearly wanted to. I don't think it worked the way it intended to, but it's really cool, and there's some amazing moments in it. It's definitely worth seeing. So I will give it 3 growl growls. So growl, 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 growl.
3 growl growls out of 3.5 growl growls?
4 growl growls total.
4 is pretty good.
It's fine. It's fine. Better than Interstellar. Not as good as Inception.
Yeah, that's tough.
I love all his movies. I can't even separate them. They're all just perfect.
I'm thinking too in the moment right now to rank them because I'm pretty high on Dunkirk at the moment. I'm sure I'll come down and figure out where it lands later on.
Titan, anything to add on Dunkirk before we move on to the next news segment?
Whoa, wait a minute. Why are we only talking about Dunkirk? Valerian came out this weekend, and it's amazing.
None of us have seen it.
See Valerian. Like, seriously. Like, again, it's another one where the plot is maybe not that great, but my God, the imagery. It is such an incredibly transportive experience. See it. It gets 4 growl growls.
Wow.
Growl, 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 growl.
Quick question. Better film, in your opinion, Valerian or Captain Underpants?
I mean, they're trying to do very different things, so it's a weird comparison to make. But I would say,
which did you get more enjoyment out of?
Valerian.
Oh, okay. Because you're quite high on Captain Underpants.
Ultimately, Valerian, I think, is one of the 3 films I've seen this year that'll probably stick with me for a long time.
Wow. Okay. There you go.
Is this Cara Delevingne's best performance since Paper Towns?
Yes, because Suicide Squad sucked.
Of course.
Okay.
You thought I was going to say Suicide Squad, but I went with Paper Towns.
No, she's fine in Paper Towns. She's playing exactly the role she needs to play in Paper Towns.